Welcome to the Goodyear City Council meeting. We're excited to have you be a part of this important public process. Tonight, you will have the opportunity to address City Council on both non-agenda and agenda items. The agendas and the speaker request cards are located on the tables outside of council chambers. You must fill out a speaker card in order to address the City Council. Please hand in your completed card to the City Clerk before the start of the meeting. If the meeting has already begun, please hand it to any city staff. You may also check the I do not wish to speak option on the card. This allows you to still voice your opinion on an item on the record without having to speak. Public comment on a non-agenda item will take place during the citizen comment portion of the evening. These are items that don't appear on tonight's formal agenda. The City Clerk will call your name when it's time for you to speak. At that time, please approach the podium and state your name for the record. We ask that you speak clearly into the microphone. You'll have a maximum of 3 minutes, and there is a timer visible from the podium. When the light changes from green to yellow, your time is coming to an end. When the light turns red, your time is up. Note that you may also choose not to speak if other speakers before you have said what you wanted to say. Shouting, cheering, and loud noises will not be tolerated, and violators may be removed for disrupting the meeting. Goodyear City Council meetings stream live on Facebook and YouTube, and online at goodyearaz.gov. Thank you for your participation in tonight's meeting.
I'd like to call the regular meeting to order for February 28, 2022. Please join Councilmember Campbell in the Pledge of Allegiance and Invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today for the many blessings that you have given us. Thank you for life itself and for the measure of health that we need to fulfill our callings, for subsistence and for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. I pray for our mayor, for the various level of city officials, and in particular for this assembled council. I'm asking that you give us gracious wisdom to govern amid conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, and the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement. I pray for the agenda set before us today. Please give us an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in our beloved city. Bless and protect our fire employees as they protect us every day. Bless our military, those here and those deployed all over the world to protect our country. Keep a hedge of protection around all of them at all times. It is in your most blessed name that I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you there for the prayer there, Councilmember Campbell. See, we have two communication items tonight.
Mayor,
First, yes,
the roll call, please.
all here. All right. We have, I thought I said that. Anyway, we have two communication items tonight. First item is to recognize Shauna Henria, did I say it right? For receiving a certified public safety executive designation. I hope I didn't butcher that name up too bad there.
Henry.
Okay, I was good?
It was correct, yes. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm excited to present tonight an accomplishment that Shauna Henry, our telecommunications manager, has achieved. And I have a little something written here. And back in January this year, Shauna Henry, our telecommunications manager, graduated from the prestigious Certified Public Safety Executive Program, otherwise known as the CPE, through the Association of the Public Safety Communications Officials, which is APCO. So this program consisted of two 12-week online courses and one 10-day capstone course at the APCO headquarters in Florida. So the CPE program was established back in 2016 and was designed to elevate professionalism, enhance individual performance, and recognize excellence in public safety communications industry. So drawn on these resources from the renowned leadership professionals and distinguished academic sources, the program allows participants to explore management versus leadership models, theories of leadership styles, public safety leadership issues, and executing and managing change. The curriculum combines academic rigor with deep personal self-reflection and insight to enable the participants to identify their own unique, authentic leadership style. So the Goodyear Police Department is proud of the great accomplishment of our very own Shauna Henry, now that she's completed the CPE program. And I just wanted to bring tonight that, we talk about leadership a lot, and it's obviously part of our core values, but Shauna's here, and she does use her core values every day to run one of the finest 911 centers, in the nation. So with that, I will let Shauna speak if she has anything that she would like to talk about, and then we'll go from there.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just appreciate the recognition. It was a great program and one that I hope will really benefit our telecommunications division as we grow and become, like the chief said, one of the best in the nation. Thank you.
Let's give her a hand. Second item will recognize Deputy City Manager Dan Cotterman for his service to the city of Goodyear. Please introduce yourself.
City Manager Julie Cairns, and it's a bittersweet moment for me tonight. Dan, come on up. Since tonight will be Deputy City Manager Dan Cotterman's last council meeting, I want to take the opportunity to recognize him for all that he's done for the city. But first, I'd like to thank Dan's family for being here tonight. We have his wife, Lonnie, 3 of his daughters, Elizabeth, Catherine, and Chloe, and 2 of his sons, Patrick and Eli. Thank you for being here. So as we're painfully aware, Dan is leaving Goodyear to take on the role of city manager for a neighboring Buckeye. He has been instrumental in our city's success since he joined the city in February of 2013 as the Director of Information Technology and was promoted to Deputy City Manager in January of 2016. There are countless ways Dan has made a lasting impact on Goodyear, including negotiating an agreement with Salt River Project to deliver Central Arizona Project water to Goodyear, expansion of the Goodyear Fire Department as it added 2 innovative fire stations, and Public Works' new surface water treatment facility, just to name a few. Dan has been a vital member of my executive team, and it's no surprise that innovation is one of his favorite core values, as challenging the status quo and thinking outside the box to do what is best for Goodyear. He is a trusted colleague, friend, and leader, and we look forward to partnering with Dan in the city of Buckeye as he continues to help shape the future of the West Valley. Tonight, I have a glass plaque, and it reads, "An appreciation for your outstanding service and leadership, 2013 to 2022. And since Dan will not be making, the move to the new Civic Square, which he has been so instrumental in helping to plan, the team wanted to ensure he had a small piece of the project to take with him. So along with the plaque is we have a piece of the limestone from Turkey, which will be displayed on the exterior and interior of Civic Square. And we thought it would be something that you could place the plaque on to always remind you of your impacts that you've had here in Goodyear. So please congratulate me on, please help me congratulate Dan on his next adventure. That's beautiful. You can put it right on there. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes. Wow, thank you, Julie, for those incredible words and then this really cool piece of history here that I will not forget. What an amazing 9 years. It's been incredible, and I really just want to say thank you to all the staff, the directors, and all of you, Mayor and Council, and then a special thanks to Julie and Wynette. They tolerate my thermostat preferences and let me come back every day. And just an incredible organization. I'm so proud to be here. I would like to thank my family, as Julie pointed out, for lending me to you what feels like every Monday night for 9 years. It's been great, just incredible support. And I'm really looking forward to the new opportunity, the new role in Buckeye. And there's so much happening in the West Valley right now that between Buckeye and Goodyear, the partnership opportunities are limitless. And I'm sure I'll see you all at regional events, and we'll stay in contact. So thank you very much.
Let's see if we get some comments here from the council. Start over here with Councilmember Kano. Anything? Yeah, for Dan.
You're about to go on a grand adventure. I know you're going to do very well. You'll be very successful, and we just wish you the best. And it's a very well-earned opportunity or promotion for you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Campbell.
Well, Dan, I remember your first day. I probably came to you with a computer
I
problem
think you did. Yeah.
because my computer wouldn't go on or something. And I spent a lot of time in your office, and you were always so kind and so thoughtful, and I just really appreciated that. What I really appreciated, too, was the fact that you were able to keep us online longer than anyone else without us losing our ability to go on the internet. But your ability to work with all of us on a myriad of problems and concerns, and I especially appreciated you helping me with the train station. That was a project that we had been working on for 10 years, probably more than that by now, because I was working on it before I ever came on council in 2011. So I really thank you for that, and I really am so happy for you to have this opportunity. I know you're going to serve Buckeye well, and I look forward to seeing you anywhere we can see you. You'll always belong to us, even though you're going to be their manager. So just don't forget, your roots are here. But we just wish you the very, very best, Dan. You've just been a wonderful friend, a mentor, and just a wonderful person. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I love your Porsche.
I sold it.
Vice Mayor Hampton.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, I did also appreciate working with you. You did really well here at the city, so I appreciate your heart and your servant heart to further the work of the city of Goodyear. And I've already talked to the city of Buckeye. They're very excited to have you there. So I know you do really well, and you'll do just as good, if not better, there as also. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bray.
Thank you, and congratulations to you. I know we didn't get to spend a lot of time together, but I know you did a lot of tremendous work here. Special thank you to your family for the sacrifices they made for you to stay after hours with this council and work for the city. So congratulations and good luck in the town of Buckeye.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stipp.
You know, when the announcement first came out, I had said to Dan, I can't say that I'm sorry to see you go, because I know that this is a great career opportunity for you. And I truly mean that. And while I am sorry that you're leaving us, I'm glad that it's regional. To your family, if you thought this was a sacrifice, wait till he gets to work next Monday. Something Julie didn't want to say, but there's a lot more than Monday nights now as it goes, but I'm very excited that you'll be our neighbor, and I look forward to a long working relationship.
Thank you.
Councilmember Loretano.
Well, congratulations, and you've been such a vital member of our Goodyear team that you will not be forgotten, and your family, thank you, and for letting us have him, and he does such a great work. And I am so very proud of you. This is a great opportunity for you, for your career, for your family. Although it's our loss, It's Buckeyes game, so they better be nice to you, or we'll have to like not be nice to them if they're not, don't treat you well. But we're really, all kidding aside, we're really glad that you have this opportunity and you will do a fantastic job. I know you will. And it'll be great to see you because you will be helpful for the region. It'll be so nice to have those contacts in the region. So congratulations, and you'll be missed.
Thank you.
Well, Dan, it's been a joy working with you. One question I have is, do you still have that superhero outfit you wore at one of our employee events?
I might.
Did you save the pictures? That's all that matters. Well, listen, I know you're going to do fantastic there. Really going to miss you here. And the greatest of luck, Dan.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Now is the time for citizens who would like to address the city council on any non-agenda item within the jurisdiction of the city of Goodyear Council. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Does anybody in the audience wish to speak? No speaker cards? Nobody in the audience? Well, then, will the city clerk please read the consent agenda, items 3 through 17 by title only?
Number 3, approval of minutes. Number 4, approve the appointments to boards, commissions, and committees. Number 5, authorize the city manager or designee to execute the agreement with Basis Charter Schools, Inc. for joint use of facilities. Number 6, approve the project budget transfers. Number 7, accept the fire hydrant and water line easement associated with the Platinum Storage Project. Number 8, accept a sidewalk easement and issue a retention wall and access easement associated with the Microsoft Phoenix 1011 project. Number 9, accept an emergency services access easement for portions of the Pebble Creek Marketplace. Number 10, approve the termination and release of a water line easement associated with the final plat for Air Park Logistics Center. Number 11, accept 4 emergency government services access easements and a special warranty deed associated with the Prologis development. Number 12, adopt resolution number 2022-2212, authorizing city manager to accept easements dedicated to the city and providing an effective date. Number 13, approve the final plat for Able Ranch Phase 1, subject to stipulations. Number 14, approve the map of dedication for Pradera Phase 3, subject to stipulations. Number 15, approve the final plat for Pradera Phase 3, Parcel D, subject to stipulations. Number 16, approve the final plat for Pradera Phase 3, Parcel E, subject to stipulations. 17, approve the final plat for Pradera Phase 3, Parcel F, subject to stipulations.
Anybody on the council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Yes, Councilmember?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to remove item number 5.
Is this question? Would you want a presentation?
I want like a presentation and explanation behind number 5.
Can we do that? Can we do that and then try to put them all together if he's happy with that, or how should I handle this?
Probably just go ahead and move forward with the motion to, for the remainder of the items 3,
With the
4,
exception of-
and 6
exception
through
of 5.
17.
Okay. Can I get a,
Be pulling off?
The
5.
basis.
5.
5. Number 5.
can I get a motion from the council, consent agenda 3, 4, 6 through 17?
So second.
Okay. All right, with that, do I hear a yes? We're good?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. Now, you're up.
And while they're coming up, just so everybody knows, I have already sent these questions in.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Deanna Ortiz, and along with me today is David Side, Deputy Director. Okay, good evening. As far as the context to the agreement, here is an overhead of the adjacency of Basis and the Goodyear Recreation Campus.
Do we need the bases? Oh,
There it is.
Okay.
So we are here this evening to discuss the joint use agreement with Basis Charter Schools and why we are recommending this. So the goal of the 2014 Parks and Recreation Master Plan was to leverage resources and to better serve the community. The city has been working with the two adjacent schools, one being Desert Edge High School, the second being Basis Charter Schools, for quite some time now. There was also some interest from Basis during the Goodyear Recreation Campus design. We currently have an IGA with the Desert Edge High School and the Agua Fria School District, and we would like to formalize this agreement, which would help us with our current partnerships. So some of the benefits is being the proximity to the facility of the recreation campus. We currently have utilized their parking lots for special events, as well as some of our youth sports overflow parking. As far as the peak use of times, we would utilize the Basis Charter School campus out of school time. So for instance, the evenings and during the summer programs. As far as them using our facilities, it would happen primarily our park amenities that would be during the day when most of our children are in school and then people are working. So it would be a win-win when it comes to non-peak hours. As far as the terms, there would be no facility fees that would be incurred by either party, although there would be some cost for some unique staffing situations. For instance, if they were ever able to rent our facility as like the pool, there would be no facility costs associated, but there would be a cost for lifeguards to ensure the safety of that facility. And likewise, if we would have to pay a janitor to open or close their facility, we might incur a cost on their staff behalf. There would be a 30-day cancellation from either party, and we would be basically evaluating this agreement to make sure it's a win-win for both entities. The second page is basically going to show you a financial example of what it would be. As far as the city, parking is very difficult to place a value on a parking lot. Now, we currently have used their parking lot for special events. We've currently had 2 thus far since our opening of July 3rd. And we also have used their parking for youth sports programs. Basis currently does not rent their facilities, so we're not able to put a dollar-to-dollar amount as far as what it would cost to rent their facility. So just to give you an example, for our summer recreation program, which is a 7-week program, I took the costs that are current for the Avondale Elementary School District as to what it would cost, although charter schools are typically much higher than a public school. We currently have an IGA with Avondale Elementary School District, but I was trying to compare to give you a cost analysis. So it basically would cost about $29,750 for a 7-week summer program to be held utilizing their facility. And then a youth sports program, basically I was doing like a basketball program that would be held. An 8-week program would have a facility cost of about $4,160. Now, as far as Basis using our parking, that's their #1 priority. I don't know if you guys have ever been there around school dismissal time, but they utilize our parking lot to help avoid the parking backup on Goodyear Boulevard. So often they do have multiple dismissal times. You'll often see the parents or grandparents park in the parking lot, get child #1, they kind of head over to the playground and the amenities, and they wait for the second child dismissal time. So that's something that that's their #1 priority. And as far as the park, I just gave a couple examples if they were to use the field days, which like I said is during non-peak time, it's during the day. It's about a $650 cost that would relative to that. As far as their future school programs, I just picked like a tennis program. If they were to use our facility 4 days a week, it would be an average cost of about $800. So as you can see, there's definitely a benefit to the city, and it would help us better serve our community with this agreement with Basis. We are asking the council to approve the city manager to execute the joint use of agreement between Basis Charter School, Inc. and the City of Goodyear for joint use of facilities.
Yes. Let's get a motion to authorize the city manager or designee to execute the agreement with Basis Charter School for the joint use of facilities.
Second.
Go ahead.
Okay, now open for discussion.
Thank you very much for the presentation. My concern originally, Ray, the information that was provided tonight was not in the council packet. It was somewhat vague, so it was difficult to try to discern whether this was good use of public funds or not. The recreation campus is a place that we charge our residents to use, and it appeared from the information that we were now giving this away to a private company, which is basically a charter school. In getting this information this afternoon, and I think from the examples that were provided, it's very clear that there's not a public giveaway of our facilities or those uses. And that was my primary concern. The other concern that I had was what type of use was being proposed on our campus that perhaps would be in conflict with the use of our residents. And the conversation that I had earlier, and if you guys correct me if I don't state this correctly, but basically this was our ask to Basis and not the other way around. And it gives us an opportunity to do summer programming at the Basis campus, which is very close to our rec center, therefore keeping the rec center property free. Have I stated that fairly correctly?
Mayor and Councilmember Stipp, that is correct.
So, which is all really good information. It just wasn't contained in the council packet. And I believe very strongly in the transparency of government. And I thought it was important that we all hear it, and B, the public hears it as well. This is a good use for us. I know that this took up a lot more time, but this is transparency well worth it. So I appreciate the extra effort.
Any other questions?
These IGAs are similar to what we already have with Avondale and with Desert Edge, is it not? Are they not? They're just similar.
Mayor and Councilmember Campbell, this is a joint use of agreement,
Right.
and we do currently have IGAs with the Avondale Elementary School District and Desert Edge.
I am absolutely in favor of a joint use agreement with the schools so that we can use their facilities and they can use ours, because that helps us expand the programs when they are not in session or when they're off for the summer. And our summer rec program is one of the most popular programs we have. And I think if we had 6 different programs for the kids to come, the parents would fill them, because there's always a wait list. You can never, it's very difficult to find good, safe childcare. And this is a wonderful program for our residents. So thank you for bringing this forward. And I hope that you will continue to look for other joint agreements with other schools if it works for anything that's around any of our community parks, so that we can use their facilities as well as them.
Great comments, Councilmember Campbell. And as we go down the road with this agreement, we'll definitely evaluate it, make sure that it's a win-win for both organizations. So we look forward to a long and productive partnership with Basis, and we have nothing to indicate that won't be the case.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Does this get renewed? How long is it for? Is it for every year? We look at, reevaluate, renew, or is there a certain time frame that we're getting into?
Vice Mayor Hampton, yes, on this particular joint use agreement, really, as long as it's functioning and both agency is getting what they want out of it, it will remain in place. But like I said, the language is a 30-day back out. There's no obligations to renew. There's no minimum obligations to accommodate X for Y. It's really in the spirit of cooperation and making sure that there's balance and value between the two parties, and we'll continue to evaluate it. If we ever get to a point where it doesn't make sense for the city, we will definitely make the recommendation to cancel the agreement.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody good? Well, then let's go ahead and vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
All right. There are 4 public hearings on the agenda. The first public hearing items to consider is a rezoning of approximately 6.23 acres from agricultural urban to MF18 with the Cleveland Development Regulations, MF18 with a PAD overlay. Open the public hearing. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mayor Pizzolo and council, and welcome to Monday night. My name's Christian Williams, Senior Planner here with City of Goodyear. Here before you this evening with a request from Taylor Earl to conduct a rezoning on a property within the city. The property is approximately 6.23 acres, and it is located in central Goodyear on Saraville Avenue, about 50 feet south of Portland Street, which is half a mile north of Van Buren Street. It's right here. The property is currently zoned agricultural urban, or AU, and the property is located in this red box right here. So we've got Saraville, Van Buren, I-10 property. Currently on the site, there is a single-family home and a cellular wireless communication facility. So zooming in a little closer, again, here's the site right here. To the north of the site is a Canyon Trails greenbelt, which is approximately 50 to 100 feet in width. To the south of the site is a church, a couple more churches, another single-family home, some more churches and schools. To the east is Wade Acres. Those are single-family large lot homes. To the those are east of RID Canal right there. And to the west is Saraville Avenue, and then additional portions of the neighborhood for Canyon Trails Phase 1 and 2. Again, today on the site, site is developed. There is a single-family home on the far west end. There's a couple accessory buildings as well. Wade Acres again is over here. And then there's a wireless communication facility here that is disguised like a monopalm. As it relates to other multifamily in the area of Goodyear between McDowell Road on the north, future SR 30 on the south, Perryville on the west, and Bullard on the east, there are 8 established multifamily communities. 1 is for the baseball team, 5 are traditional garden apartments, and 2 are single-family rentals. Those are shown in orange. Shown in purple, there are 8 under development or recently approved or completed. 2 are garden style, 6 are single-family rental style. Shown in yellow, there are 19 zoned for multifamily. 8 are likely to be single-family rentals or townhouse style. 9 are likely to be garden style, and 2 are part of City Center, which will likely come back to you for a rezone in the future. Shown in blue again, right here. Shown in blue are 4 developments that you will likely see in the future, and then this star on the map right here is the project we're talking about today. So the applicant is requesting the property be rezoned to MF18, Multifamily Residential District, with a PAD overlay to facilitate the development of a townhouse-style development on this narrow 6.23 acre parcel. The zoning also contemplates that the existing cellular tower will remain in its current location in the middle of the site. So that's right here. The use of a PAD overlay is justified as the current development standards for the MF18 zoning district does not address some of the unique circumstances found on this proposed lot if it is zoned to multifamily. So on the next slide, I will cover some of those components. Starting with setbacks, the proposed PAD overlay reduces side yard setbacks, which would be the north and the south, from 30 feet to 20 feet on the north and 15 feet on the south side of the community. This reduction is mitigated by the presence of a 50 to 65 foot wide landscape track on the north. That would be that Canyon Trails HOA Greenbelt. And adjacent to the south property line is a church, which is zoned AU, and there's an existing 10-foot landscape buffer on the church property, which is adjacent to this property here. Then there's parking lot within the church property. The proposed 15-foot setback will not have an impact on the parking lot of the church itself. Additionally, the PAD overlay proposes to reduce the rear yard setback, which is this one over here, from 30 feet down to 15 feet on the east. There is existing canal along the eastern property line that creates a 20-foot buffer to the existing single-family residential lot. Trash enclosures near residential is always a concern when they're adjacent to residential properties or other single-family developments. Commercial dumpsters would not be located on this site with its current zoning, nor do they exist today. So if this was developed as commercial, there would be required setbacks from residential. Thus, based on the narrowness of the site and the distance to single-family districts, the PAD ensures that trash enclosures will be over 150 feet from existing single-family residential homes and more than 80 feet away from residential lots that could, in the future, contain residential homes. The PAD overlay also requests that trash enclosures not be adjacent to the residential units that are on the site. So there's provisions for at least having 20 feet of spacing between residential garbage, commercial dumpsters, and the residential parcels on the site, or the residential buildings on the site. Now to walls. The city does not typically allow double walls stacked next to one another or parallel walls, creating narrow alleyways that's within 20 to 50 feet of another parallel wall. This is for safety, aesthetics, and debris concerns. On this site, there is an APS easement, that's right here, and you can see it in this picture here, which causes some constraints. The PAD overlay would allow the construction of a parallel rear yard private yard wall no closer than 10 feet to the existing Canyon Trails Phase 1 HOA wall, which you can see here. The constructed rear yard private walls would be required to be view fencing, entirely wrought iron minus the support columns along this area. And if side yard privacy walls or perpendicular walls to that wall are built within 20 feet of that existing HOA wall, the portions of the wall that are within the 20 feet would be required to have 2 foot of view fence on top of the wall. Does that make sense? So the Canyon Trails HOA wall is right here. We typically don't allow a parallel wall within 20 feet. The applicant is requesting 10 feet. So the provision in the PAD overlay is that the rear of these private yard walls must be completely view fencing. The perpendicular walls, if they are within 20 feet, so call it the first 10 feet of those, must be view fence on the top 2 feet of that wall. In addition, this space, this 10-foot space here, would be required to have a 4-foot wide compacted GG walking trail. The PAD also allows the existing cellular tower, that monopalm that's approximately 80 feet in height, to remain on the site. And it clarifies pedestrian connections on the site, allows for private yard walls within the setback areas, and establishes certain architectural standards related to walls in continuity with the existing Canyon Trails development. So the developer currently proposes one single access point onto Saraville Avenue. With the site being this close to an intersection of Portland and Saraville, which is approximately 50 feet from the site, so this is where the proposed entrance is going to be, there would be a restriction for a right turn in, a right turn out, and staff would restrict this site to right turn in, right turn out. In addition, the applicant will be required to construct a median in Saraville Avenue. So again, the site would be restricted to right turn in, right turn out, median constructed. The median being constructed is for safety, so that residents don't attempt to make a left turn into the site using the suicide lane kind of concept and have an overlapping left turn movement for those going northbound on Saraville Avenue trying to turn left into Portland. So again, that median would restrict these residents from getting in the left turn lane the wrong direction and making that left turn lane into the site. For a little bit of additional background on where this site is located as it relates to other developments that are in play. The neighborhoods, so south of, this is Portland right here. Portland Street goes through Canyon Trails Phase 1 over to Walmart. Portland this way connects to Garfield and will connect to the ultimate frontage road for 303 northbound. These are some additional developments that are under development or in the works within the area. So the colors in orange is existing, yellow is zoned and in the future, and blue are likely cases this blue one is a case you will likely see before you in the near future. As it relates to this case, there is a concern if Saraville is the only access into this property. The concern being if you are coming from southbound on Portland from Interstate 10, you will enter the site to make that left turn. You might make a right turn into the Canyon Trails development on Portland, come through on Baden, cut through the neighborhood, and make that U-turn to go into the site, or turn into the site so that you don't have to make a U-turn at the church. The other traffic concern is that if residents in this development want to go south to Fancy Fries, as I like to call it, you would make a left turn out, try to get 3 lanes over into the turning lane, and make a U-turn. Now, it is possible to make a U-turn, but if you have an F-250, it's not as easy. Depending on your wheelbase, there's varying abilities here, but there are some concerns if somebody were trying to make a U-turn right there. This was also one of the concerns neighbors have brought up to staff's attention. Neighbors have asked the developer to consider adding a connection onto Portland Avenue so that the U-turns would be minimized and those residents could make a safe turn left onto Portland and then have full access movement safely and legally at this intersection. Additionally, Planning and Zoning Commission had those similar concerns and added a stipulation with their recommendation for approval, and I will touch on that here on the next slide. I will also point out that there are other developments in the Canyon Trails area that are adjacent to Canyon Trails greenbelts that have requested easements from that HOA to gain access to the public street. One of those examples being La Ventia. There is a Canyon Trails greenbelt just west of Saraville, and La Ventia Way goes through that Canyon Trails greenbelt and gains it access to Saraville Avenue. To date, the city has received emails with neighborhood concerns as well as a resident in attendance at that neighborhood meeting in opposition of the rezoning. The resident specifically cited that she did not like the blocky appearance of the buildings. These are some preliminary building sketches. Blocky appearance of the buildings and wanted the developer to consider access onto Portland. At the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the commission recommended approval subject to a stipulation which states, owner shall acquire and convey to the city at no cost to the city right-of-way to provide access from the property to Portland and from Portland to the property, and owner shall, at no cost to the city, construct all improvements required to provide such access. Again, this was a stipulation that the Planning and Zoning Commission added as a recommendation with the approval if it were to be considered, again, for the U-turns as well as concerns about public safety having one access into the site. Staff is supportive of the rezone with the additional stipulation. This stipulation is what staff requested the applicant consider for approval as well. So staff has evaluated the impacts of this proposed rezoning to the greater community. The option before you today includes approving the rezone to MF18 with a planned area development overlay subject to the stipulations, of which include the right-in, right-out restriction if access is from Saraville Avenue. Again, this includes a median, and a median addresses the safety concerns, and subject to the applicant gaining access onto Portland Street. I believe the applicant is here, has a presentation as well, and I'm happy to answer questions after their presentation.
Well, we have the applicant. Where's the applicant? You want to go ahead and speak?
Sure. Yes, please. Christian, can I get that? Yes. From you? Yes. Yeah, thanks. Perfect. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. For your record, my name is Taylor Earl with the law firm of Earl and Curley. Here on behalf of Porter Kyle, who is the proposed developer for the site. So I appreciate Christian's presentation, so I'll do my best to not duplicate it, but just add some additional color on things that I think are important. So just looking here at the vicinity map, one thing just to highlight again is the proximity to the I-10. And so as we think about employment coming in line, and we expect that near freeways and infill development that we are going to have higher density come in. This is where we want to see development. People can have the quick access to the employment areas. And so we think this is a good property in terms of its location. But I will note that it is a difficult parcel to develop. I term these types of parcels bowling alleys in that they are long and they are skinny and they are difficult to develop. They're difficult to find development for. That's why this property is probably not developed to this point. And so finding a product that can fit and fit well is something of a challenge. You also have here on the back end of the property, you have this canal that makes just inefficiencies, sort of adding insult to injury, it makes inefficiencies. Buildings tend to be square and rectangles. When you have a property that has triangular portions, it creates an inefficiency in terms of site planning. So it is a challenge in that regard. Now, we've seen this area change over time, and I just wanted to highlight just some of the changes that's occurred. So even not that far back, here we are in 1998, you can see just the fields and the farming lands that are out here. And then as quickly as 2006, not that long after, you see quite a bit of the development coming in. And then, of course, today. So we've really filled in this area, and this area directly has changed. And as Christian mentioned, you've sort of seen this particular area kind of turn into church and school zone, right? You have the churches and you have schools, and that's because those can develop within the existing zoning by right. They don't require a rezone, which is why you're seeing that. Now it looks like there's one sort of holdout here in the middle, but the reality is that this property has been now, development has come in and around this property, and it's really changed. And so to have a single family home facing onto Sayreville Avenue, it's not the condition that it was when this home was here for decades and decades before, right? And then of course to see that basically quasi-commercial nature of the street sort of change over time as well, we think it's appropriate that we have a rezoning at this time, allow this property owner to this family to sell the property and move it towards an infill development. And again, you sort of see that here with the zoning that's come into the area. But again, the reason this particular zone has not transitioned in terms of zoning is for the reasons I mentioned, the existing things that can occur without rezoning. So our proposal here is to do a luxury townhome product. This would appeal to a higher income earner, those looking for greater privacy, to have enhanced interiors. They want to have superior amenities. This is a turnkey lifestyle. It doesn't necessarily work for everyone. You know, I have 6 kids. It probably doesn't work for a family like mine, right? But for families, for individuals who want to have a really nice lifestyle, but they don't want to necessarily maintain a big backyard, or they don't, they just want to be able to come in, have a great living space inside, really nice amenities, and be able to just turnkey and leave, go to work, go out on the weekends, spend money in the restaurants in the area. This is a great product for them. Some of the just elevations, again, conceptuals, we'll continue to work with staff on these, but we have heard that there's a desire for colors, so we've put in lots of different colors. Kind of use some images here. You can see sort of plum and a dark green. Of course, sometimes hard to see on some of these screens here because it's a little washed out. But there's quite a bit of color that we've put into these to make them interesting, to make them unique. And we're keeping the sophistication of them. They have sort of wood trellises and there's balconies. Every unit has either a backyard space or a patio space. And so again, we want to hit that high level of income earner, and so that requires us to design at that level. And so you can see here the site plan, how we've done this. And as I mentioned, difficult parcel, but when you're doing this type of design where you can have a 4-plex or a 5-plex, you can kind of make it work. And that's why it's one thing to site plan a property, and it's one thing to site plan it well and to have a product that isn't harmed by the difficulties of the site. And I think that our site planners here on our team have done a really fine job of making that look great. And right as you pull in, you get the clubhouse and the pool right out of the right as you come in, and then it would be a gated entry back into the development. And the other thing I would just note, as we look at infill, the first question that I always look at when my clients bring me anything that's infill is what's immediately adjacent to the site. Because people that live in single-family homes don't necessarily want to see something come right next to them. And telling them that this is infill, these are the challenges, tends to not be a great response, right? They don't necessarily want that. So when I looked at this, I thought, well, this is great. Because we have a church to the south, we have an arterial to the west, we've got a drainage from the HOA here to the north, along with the street, and you have this pinch point of the property to the east, making it really quite unlikely that you would have a home developed there. And of course, there's simply not one today, plus you have the canal. So when we look at that, and then we're keeping it at 2 stories instead of 3 stories, which you would see on sort of infill developments as well. So I look at that and think difficult parcel, we are infill, we're keeping it at 2 stories, you have good buffers on all sides. It really seems like a great fit. Just a little element of the intro to give you a feel for kind of what the flavor of it would feel like, and again, sort of conceptual as we move forward towards final monument sign design. So this in the general plan, this is in neighborhoods, which has a broad variety, and what we want to see is, and I like the language here, a wide range of densities and housing products. It's important that a city have that type of variety of products, and so we're providing that. Now, as I mentioned earlier, and I don't need to belabor the point because the council knows well the employment that it has successfully attracted to the area, and that's all come online. But again, with this employment also comes a need for housing opportunities, that we need to have an appropriate level of density to not only attract but retain big employers, because they want to be able to have opportunities for their employees to live without really far commutes. And so we would expect to see associated density needs with the employment that's come into the area. And so I mentioned earlier some of the interiors, just to give you, again, a sense, 10-foot ceilings, stainless steel, granite countertops, full washer and dryer, smart home technology. So again, sort of that quality of lifestyle. Here's some of the enhanced amenities that we're putting in. There'll be a pool, outdoor dining and barbecue area, indoor-outdoor fitness area, kids play area, co-working space, has like a coffee bar and a conference room. There'd be a lounge area, and then we'd have a dog park. And then there's a walking trail to the canal here along this north side, which would connect you down to the canal, which then brings you down to the intersection. So it's a nice sort of walking opportunity for the residents. Just wanted to note this in terms of the need for housing. This is from Elliot Pollack, very respected economist. This is a quote from an article. And for the record, I'll just read it here. It says, quote, "I've been doing this work since 1969, and this is the worst housing supply-demand imbalance I've ever seen. We're at the precipice of a very serious problem. This will affect our ability to attract and retain top employers, attract and retain top talent, maintain and improve the quality of life for our residents, and increase the customer base for our small businesses. We simply must increase supply, or it's all downhill from here." And so again, we know that we need to have this. And so we think about, well, we got to do it in good locations. And so I think that's the crux of what we're here to say, is that we need it, and we think this is a great site for it. Now, to speak to the stipulation that was added regarding the access to Portland. So it does require us to obtain in right-of-way over a tract. Now, just to be clear, it's not just a green belt. This is a tract that's owned by the HOA, and it is being used, it is in their plat listed as for their drainage channel. So you'll see that there is an indentation, so it actually is functioning for drainage. And so the requirement would be that we have to obtain that in fee title as right-of-way for the city, or else we would have a zoning that we couldn't build, because it would be a requirement in order to get site plan approval and permits. And so having it be a requirement means if it can't be done, if the HOA decides we're not interested, then you have zoning that simply cannot be used. Nothing can go forward on it. And so in practice, it ends up becoming really a project killer. And it's not a type of stipulation that I've received where I'm required to go and buy more land from somebody who's not a land seller, not in the business of selling their property, but is a functioning HOA who's currently utilizing that land. And so it is something that, again, can be a project killer for us. So we understand the question that had arisen regarding right-in, right-out movements. And early in the process, we had received the comment that we were to be restricted to right-in, right-out, and we didn't protest that. We said, okay, that works. It's a safe movement. It's a fully legal movement. For those who would have the U-turn, that's a fully legal movement. There's plenty of space on Sayreville Avenue. So we didn't have a concern. Now, it is really a site planning issue, and so moving into this is a land use question up front, and then we get into site planning. We're happy to take a look at that, and If the city would like to give us additional access from the traffic engineering department, we're happy to take it, but it really is a site planning question. So with that, Mayor, Council, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, why don't you hang loose and we'll see what comes up, okay? Let's see, do we have any cards?
Yes, we do.
Okay, go ahead.
Cynthia Robles.
Before you start, each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. The yellow light that you see down there in front will let you know when you have 20 seconds left to speak. Before you begin to speak, identify yourself by clearly stating for the record your name and if you're a Goodyear resident.
Thank you. My name is Cynthia Robles, and I'm a 20-year Goodyear resident, and I thank you for allowing me to speak. We've seen a lot of changes in these 20 years, and this one is definitely going to impact us negatively, those of us that live right along Saraval. Yes, I'm not thrilled about another ugly big block building in Kitu schools is eyesore enough to look at every day. And yes, I am concerned about the privacy and the noise issues. But my biggest concern is the safety of those of us that travel Saraval multiple times a day, and for the children that walk to and Kitu schools that would have to walk past this entrance to and from school. Now, I understand that this might look good on paper, but the entrance and exit design is flawed. It is almost on top of the intersection at Portland and Saraval. Traffic on Saraval is already bad. At various times during the day, northbound traffic stopped at the red light at Portland gets backed up past the Presbyterian Church, which is south of this development, and that's not including when the semis are out there. To force residents that are traveling south to make a U-turn across so much traffic is ridiculous, dangerous, and totally irresponsible. And please let me remind you that at the south end of Saraval, you have, and this is down near Commerce Street, you have the Elwood Logistics Center and 3 other buildings by Amazon, between Amazon and Saraval, that aren't even occupied yet. So the increased traffic on Saraval is going to happen. It's going to be worse than it already is. To my point of the only entrance being on Saraval, when I look at that map, things look a lot bigger and there's more distance than there actually is. And that's why I actually invited Councilmember Wally Campbell to come out and actually look at the location. From Portland to Baden, which is the first street south of Portland, it's not even 1/10 of a mile. There are 5 houses there. The left turn lane onto Portland, if you're northbound, takes up 2 of the 5 houses. If this goes in with a median, how much more is that going to take from the suicide lane, as they call it, which is our only way out of our community off of Baden? So that median is definitely going to inhibit us from exiting our community. But we're now going to have to contend with vehicles sitting in the suicide lane trying to make a U-turn. Sure, there's plenty of room for most vehicles to make a U-turn, but there's not enough room for residents going both ways. Lastly, the city allowing the implementation of medians to stop people from making left turns is really a huge failure. If you look at La Ventia on Saraval, Encantado Apartments on Van Buren, and even the new Babos on McDowell, right? You have restricted left turns, but people cut across and find a way out. They're using the turn lanes in to go out and make a left turn illegally. And so I have no doubt, because we've seen this time and time again in other areas, people coming out of this community that want to go to Fancy Fries will drive across Saraval, wrong direction, go in the suicide lane until they can head south. So I'm asking you, please do not approve this rezoning. We'd much rather have Saraval stay our highway to heaven, and let's have another church, preferably one without a school, though. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. What else?
Renee Robles.
So if I go past the stop sign,
Well, you know the rules. You just heard it, right? The yellow
please don't
light.
issue me a citation if I go 15 seconds
Yeah.
longer. I've
Uh,
practiced this.
Please
Okay.
give your name for the record, and if you would. And
Yes, my name is Rene Robles, and I am a resident of 20 years here in Goodyear. So, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. If anything smells like an east end of a westbound skunk, this project does. In the last 20 years, numerous accidents on the corner of Sarival and Van Buren, Sarival and Portland, Sarival and Freeway Underpass. More recently, the City of Goodyear police with radar guns have been staged and issued tickets to many speeders on Sarival, either going home or to work. On occasions, the city has also placed the portable slow down flashing speed limit sign and the sign that states slow down, showing drivers their speed. Cars race up and down Sarival in excess of 55 miles per hour, and I have photos of where someone just recently did donuts in the middle of the road. We ourselves have had our outer wall driven into in the past, so the city already knows people drive too fast on Sarival. Children are on the sidewalk holding signs to invite families to join them for church services. Mothers drop off their children for school and already need to make dangerous left-hand turns. The city should take responsibility for any and all accidents and fatalities if this is approved. And if cars are allowed to drive on the wrong side of the road to go south on Sarival or make dangerous U-turns just because someone thinks it's okay to make a U-turn, as it was mentioned in the last meeting, does not mean that it is a safe place. People will make illegal turns because the city has allowed the opportunity to do so, as my wife stated. People often drive through our neighborhood for the sole purpose of missing that light. They speed through it. Neighbors have asked for speed bumps to be placed, and children almost hit by people driving, making a shortcut. This project will only make it more harmful. In the future, this will only get worse. This is a 100-home project, and the only reason 100 homes is because of only one exit and one entrance. The builders are not thinking for the safety and the welfare of your families of Goodyear. We may expect maybe 200 cars alone just coming from this project. With many future employees at buildings mentioned earlier, and the future Bennett Meadow Gahan homes on Sarival, the future 27 multifamily homes senior living on Van Buren, the future luxury homes west of Desert Thunder, they were all in yellow on your map, Desert Thunder School. You are causing and forcing these people to drive on Sarival and Portland. How can this be safe? The words public trust are the last two words of your mission statement. The only way the public can trust you is either not approve this project or make it mandatory for an entrance to be placed on Portland Road. And how long will the middle island be for a left turn lane? The suicide lane is an appropriate name for this street right here. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other cards?
Rob Randalls.
Yeah,
Hi,
good
Rob.
evening.
You heard
My
about
name
the
is
yellow light?
Rob Randalls.
Yes.
And I've lived in Goodyear directly across the street from where this apartment complex is going to be built for 16 years.
Okay.
My concerns have already been stated very well by the previous two speakers. We're neighbors. I live down the street a few miles. Traffic-wise, the aspect that Christian brought up for coming down through Baden when the building of La Ventia was going on and for the development across the street. And I would expect something similar for this development. We had people racing down our residential streets at 35 to 45 miles an hour, bypassing that intersection at Portland and Sarival. And I thank God that no one got hurt or killed because children were playing on bicycles, playing ball in our neighborhood streets, and there were no accidents at that time. I've got some concerns in addition to what has already been mentioned. The ingress and egress into this complex. I have concerns that, and it's a question, it's a rhetorical question, but I believe it needs to be answered by our first responders as to whether or not they can get in and out of there should there be a fire. What I've seen with La Ventia across the street is a width of streets that's very similar to what's planned for this development. And the first responder, if you go to that development, which has garages but narrow streets, people are not parking in their garages. They're parking on the street because they can't get into their garages. If a first responder has to get a truck down there or an ambulance, I don't believe they can actually get down there. So the question is, have our first responders had a chance to fully look at this for ingress, egress? When you are bringing people in, moving people in through large moving trucks, how are the moving trucks going to get in? And that I've seen right hand in, right hand out before in other developments. I doubt very seriously if moving trucks can get in and out without damaging the curbing associated with the ingress and egress. Drainage-wise, our church is across the street, Christ Presbyterian Church. Drainage was a big issue for our church. I heard briefly mentioned that drainage was being considered, but I see nothing in the plan that shows drainage within the grounds of this apartment complex. Noise. Within the development of La Ventia, which I believe is representative of what will be encountered with this apartment complex, 4th of July issues, New Year's Eve issues, we have problems not within our neighborhood, but across the street. Apartment dwellers typically do not care as much about their neighborhood as people that own the property. And we see property problems and fireworks going off across the street with people that do own in La Ventia. Turn radius has been talked about. I think the only way you're going to be able to accomplish this on Cerevel with the traffic problems we currently have is to put no U-turns and spend a lot of police time monitoring that to assure people abide by the laws. Right now, Portland is a racetrack. We live backed up to Portland, 55, 65 miles an hour, people burning their tires and having fun, but it's dangerous out there. We actually, during rush hours, cannot get out on Cerevel right now. We go over to the exit onto Portland because that's the only way you can get out safely from our neighborhood. What I believe is going to happen is that with apartment complexes and visitors coming in is there's not enough guest parking set up within that complex, which tells me that people are going to be parking alongside the streets. And you're already talking about, and you've heard within the presentations, you're narrowing the free access around that complex. You did clarify that these are garages, not carports, but I do tell you, people are not parking in their garages across the street. And those are zero lot lines, I believe is the right term. And this complex looks a lot tighter than La Ventia does. Color scheme, when I was in Budapest, I found that people that lived in Budapest talked about how the Soviet Union came in and gave a presence and said, we love it here. And what they built were these gray monoliths across the city of Budapest. So what's happening in Goodyear? There is no color. It's the gray monoliths that I saw that people looked at as a sign of low cost and not prison type, but very low cost housing. So I encourage, since I heard different colors being planned for this complex, please don't put another gray complex in this area. Goodyear is being diminished by the color schemes that are lacking. We used to get awards for how good the color schemes were in this area. I haven't heard any awards lately for aesthetics of our neighborhoods. More gray monoliths are going up. I thank the previous speakers because the problems they voice are real.
Okay, thanks, sir. You're
That's
over
it.
time. Yep, thank
Did
you.
I go over?
Yeah.
Wow.
Who else we got?
That's it, Mayor.
That's it?
Yep.
Anybody else in the audience want to speak? We good? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Will the city clerk please read the resolution number 2022-2209 by title only?
Adopt Resolution Number 2022-2209, declaring as public records of certain documents filed with the city clerk entitled Official Supplementary Zoning Map Number 21-14 and Legal Description, Property, and the Cleveland Development Regulations MF18 with pad overlay January 2022.
Can I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution? Okay, with that, let's see, Councilmember Stipp, did you want to be first up?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. Thanks. You know, there's a lot going on with this particular parcel. So I've been taking notes on speakers and where we're at. Christian, I'm going to fire most of these off at you, and then we'll see where we go from there.
I'm ready.
Let's talk about the second entry requirement. It is not required by code, is that correct?
Based on the unit number that they're proposing on the site plan, so just to go back a little bit, there's not a site plan approved, but based on the unit count they're showing, they're 1 unit shy of needing a second entrance.
Okay, but, I mean, there's a limit at some point, right?
Correct.
So, and we've had this discussion before, I remember up in Estrella, where we approved a townhouse complex that had a very long single way in, but they were under that threshold as well. And wasn't your case, but we've done this before. And that code exists for a reason. I mean, we got to pick a number, right? So whether it's 1 unit or 5 units or 10 units or 50 units, the number's the number. So for us to require a second entry, what's the point of having the code, I guess, is the question. That is rhetorical, so don't worry about it from there. One of the speakers talked about access, and they talked a lot about fire access. That code exists for fire access, is that correct?
The access, yes.
Yeah. So we've already taken that into account. I guess I want to look at the fire chief. You may want to saunter over. You guys look at there's a fire provision looking at there's a fire set of eyes that look at these, or somebody. Maybe it's Christopher
Yeah,
Shop.
our, good evening, Mayor and Council. Paul Louisi, Fire Chief. Our fire marshal, in partnership with Building Safety and Planning, we're able to sit in the pre-application, so our voice is heard during that process.
So, and any concerns that would have arisen from that would have been addressed during the pre-app process.
Absolutely,
And
yes.
throughout this circumstance. So, again, we're within the code, we're within the prescribed circumstance. I think it was kind of addressed, Christian, you kept referring to it being a green belt along Portland, but I think that's actually that's not just green belt, that's drainage.
That is correct. It's very similar to the yes.
Yeah, so it's not a passive play area, it's a drainage culvert.
Correct. There's no improvements in that drainage.
Yeah, so to, I think oversimplify it as a green belt, is somewhat, if you hadn't driven it or you don't know it, it may be, relatively new information. We start talking about the traffic on Saraville, and I've said this a million times, I'll probably say it for a million more times, but we create these conditions, and currently, I don't believe there's a median along Saraville at all from I-10 south.
There is. There's a median from I-10 to Portland.
To Portland, but there is not one from Portland south to Van Buren.
As developments come in there to construct them. So the development south of here as well will construct it when they go to construction as well.
Okay, but from Portland to Van Buren, this is the last parcel to construct.
No, there will be another median north of Van Buren when the Cascade Falls project develops, so they will also have to put in a median as well.
Oh, the very large one on the west side of the street?
Correct.
Okay.
So as those parcels get rezoned and redeveloped with the site plan, if they're going to change zoning category and develop, we would require them to put medians in.
Okay, but for this, when we look at, I was here on staff, starting with the Harvest Baptist Church, going to the monastery school, the Agua Fria Jehovah Witness, the Encino School, the Christ Presbyterian Church. When all of those churches were built along that road, we did not require any medians be built along Saraville.
And those weren't rezoned. Yes, that's
right. So And would we require a rezoning if a church wanted to come into this location?
A church would not require a rezone because AU allows for churches.
Right. So we could have a church come in tomorrow and say, we want to put our church up there. We wouldn't be requiring a median. We wouldn't be requiring a second access. We wouldn't.
I would ask traffic. The difference here is that it's close to the signalized intersection.
And that's where I'm driving. So at the end of the day, I really don't, I'm not a traffic engineer. I don't, I play a better attorney than I play a traffic engineer. So I'd kind of like to hear from, the traffic. I thought I saw Hugh here earlier. Is Hugh here? We should not be making traffic decisions here on this, I'm going to say dais. We shouldn't be doing that here. This should be part of the stipulation as this thing moves forward to let the engineers engineer and let us approve the zoning or not approve the zoning. I mean, that's our call. So Hugh, talk to us about traffic and what we would need to move.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm Hugh Biak, City Traffic Engineer. We reviewed this traffic study. We approved it in December of 2021. And with that study, when we approved it, the version that was submitted said that the drive would be right in, right out with a median extending south across the frontage from Saraville and Portland. That's what was submitted here in the approved TIA. That's what we reviewed. Regarding Saraville Avenue, Christian has spoken to that yes, there are large portions of Saraville Avenue which do not have a median today. And again, I forgot about the property on the northwest corner of Saraville and Van Buren. Does extend it. But yeah, majority of those properties in there, yeah, there is no median today. And the city did a CIP project, which did improve the east side of Saraville. I believe it was around 2014, 2015. And at that time, that was from Portland to Van Buren. And at that time, the city did not construct a median along that section of roadway.
So we've got a lot of right in, right out, and left in, left out occurring to all of the churches that I mentioned earlier along this strip. Is that?
Yes, that is correct. As the existing classification of the roadway is a minor arterial, meaning it's a 5-lane roadway. So we have 2 northbound lanes, 2 southbound lanes, bike lanes in each direction, and then what we call a 2-way left turn lane. That's how it's been constructed. So at this point, essentially, it is full access along the, I guess we'll call it a majority of the length of that half-mile segment of Saraville Avenue.
So I guess I'm looking for another traffic study. And I thought in listening to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, there was a discussion about an additional study to be done or being done by the applicant. Is that, Mr. Earl, is that what I heard you guys say during the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, that there's an opportunity for an additional traffic study?
Yes, Councilman Stipp, that we had done some looking at in discussions with the city, with Hugh, regarding the left turn westbound onto Portland. The question was, well, how much stacking occurs there? Is there an opportunity to shorten that, therefore opening up an opportunity south of that? And so we did look at that and found that there were never more than 2 cars that were queuing at that location. And so we are, happy to do a revised traffic study looking at additional movements.
So would a revised traffic study potentially give us an answer to this question?
Yes. And again, we did have an informal conversation with the consultant for the developer. And yes, that is correct. That told them that, well, we could definitely consider it with appropriate, I asked them to take a look at what's happening in terms of analysis at Saraville and Portland. And again, we did receive an email stating that the queue for the northbound left turn at Saraville and Portland was approximately 50 feet. However, there was no analysis or any sort of report submitted with that. So based on that, we were not able to make a decision other than sticking with the originally submitted and approved TIA. or traffic impact study, sorry for the abbreviation.
So, and the reason that I'm asking this question is, if we were to make that revised traffic study a stipulation of this zoning to kind of answer this right in, right out, left turn question, does that takes it out of our hands and pushes it into the hands of the people that should be doing it?
Yes, the engineering department as a whole, plan review, and then myself, the traffic engineering area, would take a look at it and then come up with a solution that works.
Okay. Mayor, that's the only questions that I have right now. I would like to offer, after everyone's discussion, perhaps some amendments to the stipulations.
Okay, gotcha. Councilmember Bray?
This was one of my last cases on P and Z. As far as the actual rezoning, I don't think that's a problem. I mean, it has some difficulties being what it is in a, kind of that bowling alley scenario. Looking at it, I think, and I don't speak for every commission member, I think that the hard stipulation that was pushed forward was because we wanted to make sure that council took it serious. We thought there was some, traffic issues there. And, we heard the traffic studies that the private sector had completed. And I think that if you look at Saraville going out, not only do you have the traffic going to be building up from down south using that road, but I think eventually those of us that may use Cotton Lane at this moment may shift over to Saraville as the 303 is starting to be built. So there's going to be even more pressure on Saraville. So I don't believe exactly that we should hinge the project solely on purchasing of an easement to get to Portland. But I think it's a serious enough situation on Saraville, and I think the commission felt it serious enough that it really needed to be looked into and not just simply glanced at. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Loretano.
Thank you very much. There was a couple of questions that I did have. I really like Councilmember Stipp's comments about having another study or a more specific study. I am not a traffic engineer, but I will say just from driving in the city, not just the city, there was comments made. Donuts aren't just happening down there. I mean, we've had the problem in Estrella. They've had the problem in downtown Scottsdale. I mean, people just have lost their ability to drive in the last 2 years after the pandemic. I don't know what happened. We have people going 60, 70 mile an hour on city streets, not just yours, it's all around. And I know our police are out there, they're out in your neighborhood, they're out in my neighborhood, they're out in everyone's neighborhood, trying to get these people to slow down, stop running the red lights, don't make U-turns where you're not supposed to. I hear you, and I know that's a problem, and it's not just your neighborhood. If people are going through another neighborhood, maybe we could get that community information on the speed calming devices on some of their streets if there's an issue. I know they put those in different neighborhoods in our city, and those do deter people who want to cut through neighborhoods. I think if we could give them that information on how to get those set up, I know you have to have so many neighbors that agree to it. So if your neighbors don't want it, they're not going to put them in there. Because I think that is a good way to kind of start that process to keep people. We don't want people cutting through neighborhoods. It's not good. It's not good for anybody's neighborhood. But we need to think of a way we can develop this and we can do the traffic in an appropriate manner to make sure it is safe for everyone. We are in a housing crisis right now, and I read that same article. He also did a further study. Elliot Pollack did it. Was in, I think, ABC News 15 a couple weeks ago. We are pricing ourselves. We have, for rents, we're like one of the top 3 in the valley. Our rents are so high for apartments right now. People who are in the fire services, the police department, teachers are having problems finding places to live in our community. And we want retail. We have to have places for people with retail to live. So we are in a housing crisis. So we try to ask our developers and our city staff. We've always let them know, we hear you. We don't want 5 shades of gray. We don't want 5 shades of brown. We want colors. We want architectural elements that are nice. That's important. Sometimes the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, like, those are very modern, so some people might like that, some people may not like it. But I think as long as we have different choices and options, that's a good thing. So I think overall the project is very good. I don't think we've ever, and I've been on the council for over 10 years, I don't think we've ever forced anyone to buy property. And I think even when the city buys property, we're very careful not to say what property we're buying before we buy it, because then what happens is the guy that has the property, that property just went up exponentially. So I think we're kind of setting up, once you say you have to do that and you put it in public, that seems to be a problem, because then you're kind of saying, hey, person that owns property X, now you're just going to raise it up because you know the city is going to force someone to buy it. So I think that's kind of a sticky wicket we kind of got ourselves in there. So I can't really support that type of addition. I want to make sure it's a safe in and out. So I do agree with adding a stipulation. I think Councilmember Stipp made the motion to modify it that way. I think that would be a good way to look at that. And we are going to need police to monitor those areas and make sure that people are following the law. And if they don't follow the law, you know, I know our officers will be more than happy to educate them. And if they don't want to get educated and they don't want to follow the signs, then, you know, we'll give them a ticket. We have to have a safe community, and that means we all need to make sure there's nowhere that you are going that is, these people do not like their jobs that much that they want to get there that quickly. So we need to all work together, and I think this can be a good project. I think they can be a good neighbor. It's going to be high end. It's really going to help that neighborhood, and it's going to help our community. We just got to make sure we get all those pieces to make our neighbors. So that's all I have to say.
Vice Mayor Hampton.
Yeah, also a lot of good comments as well. So I had a question on the traffic study. It did take into account left turns, people taking U-turns to head south. It did specifically address that, correct?
I believe it, Councilmember or Vice Mayor Hampton, I believe it did discuss that. I don't remember it specifically, but I do think it was mentioned. And also a comment going back to Councilmember Stipp, I did want to add earlier, that the left turn would require a waiver of engineering standards. I didn't need to add that additional information. Mr. Baker provided that to me earlier, so I need to clarify that. But yes, the study, I believe it mentioned that. It did not specifically analyze it due to the size of the project.
Okay, yeah, so I think to Stipp's point about Councilmember Stipp's point about a stipulation that, yeah, understanding the traffic study there and how that would work and make sure there's no adverse effects to that neighborhood as well. I come out of that Baden every day when I go to work, so I do see the traffic that's right there. I've been having to go down to Portland to get out there now, but yeah, I'd like to see, just to make sure that no adverse effects that are there. I mean, to the zoning question, it could be a church tomorrow and it could be a school tomorrow as well. With the same issues and parents rushing to get their kids into this area. So I think having the stronger mitigation aspects to this and the more well thought out of how to mitigate this and control the amount of people that actually live in the area as well, I think is good. But yeah, to Councilmember Stipp's point, I think having the traffic study would be good. And also the speed mitigation areas, because I live right there in Elk Grove, so I think I'd be okay with the traffic median going in along there, so people don't try to take the shortcut through there as well. Also, the things I had is just around the project itself, traffic, but then also, so with this path, I forget what slide it was on, the path that's going to go along between the two. It has to be a view fence on the house side, and then it has the brick wall on the other side. And then, so can anybody get to that path, that narrow, that area there? I'm just worried about people who don't live in that area or part of that taking up residence along that back area there.
So we're not at the site plan level, so there's not an answer for that at this point, because it's just a stipulation. It's a zoning requirement that a path be put there. So the site plan has not been, we're not at that level yet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we put a fence or something where that doesn't create like I said, a place to live for people who don't live in that area there. So that's what I'd be concerned about. So, especially with the uses that are around that area also. So, yeah, something that can, I get that level, if we can address that in the future. Is in the property itself, is it a one-way loop? Or can you go either directions in the loop? I'm just curious how, if I live there, what that looks like.
Sure. So as they currently contemplate it, again, this is not approved. This is just a conceptual they have. It would be a two-way loop, if you will. So that would be a level of detail that would occur at the site planning phase.
Okay. Yeah, because to this point, is it the court home section, yeah, people do park all along there. So I just want to make sure that it can be usable, and then maybe that's the owners or how the site plan is drawn to make sure people aren't blocking all the areas for fire and everything else as well. And then the other thing, how far south is the proposed median currently that they're talking about? Does it go to the Presbyterian? Does it block the Presbyterian church? If I'm heading south from the freeway and I want to take a left turn into the Presbyterian church, am I going to be blocked from going into there?
So the difference with the church, I don't, I might have a graph, but there are two access points into all the properties effectively below this point. So the Presbyterian church to the south of here has two driveways.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
It does.
So that's the difference between this site and those sites down there, is that if this median were to continue to the south point here, there's an additional driveway south of the one that's here by
There
about
is.
100 feet.
But will it block the north entrance to the Presbyterian
If
church?
the median were placed there, you would likely need to have your left turn movements in on that south driveway.
On the south driveway. Okay. I know when I dropped my kids off to the preschool there, I was always going to the north side. So, and that was the route that they wanted you to go through when you're dropping off your kids into that preschool there. So, okay, I'm just trying to understand what it's going to feel like in that area. So yeah, that's why the traffic study I think will be important as well. And then, okay, yeah, I fully understand the concerns with the traffic. They said I think a traffic study. I'm not a traffic engineer either. I want to see this road utilized the best way possible and the safest way possible. I think right now it might be still a truck route, which I'm not sure why it's a truck route. So maybe we need to relook at that in the future. Is it still a truck route?
Vice Mayor Hampton, Cerebral Avenue is not a truck route per our city code.
Okay.
But how city code reads, again, don't want to get into the legal area, but how it's defined is any truck taking the shortest route from their point of delivery to the nearest truck route is allowable. So that's why trucks, I believe, are allowed to use Cerebral, delivering to the areas down near Cerebral and Commerce, almost to MC 85.
Okay. Okay, I thought for some reason it's a designated truck route, but you're saying it's not encouraging people to go
It's
that
not
route.
identified as a truck route, but again, trucks are allowed to use arterial streets if it's the closest route from their point of delivery or pickup to the nearest truck route, in this case being I-10.
Yeah, so I would imagine the 303 would be, when it's all completely done, would hopefully relieve the truck route in the long time. I don't know how long that will be, but the future. So, okay, those are some of the questions I had. But yeah, obviously the biggest concern is the traffic in this area and how this will fit into the area. I think this use or a school use would have the same concerns no matter what's there. So, okay, thank you.
Councilmember Campbell?
Well, there's not very much left to say since everyone has hit everything there is. I have a couple of concerns. One is the median requirement only. I just want to be fair to all the developers. If we're having the developers do certain median installations for them to have their project, I want it to go for everyone if it's on an arterial. I don't understand how we can, for a right in and a right out, in making them put a median in. Is it for safety purposes or what? I mean, is it in our code that they have to do this, or is this a stipulation that has come out of P and Z again?
The median requirement is something that we would have all applicants do if they were on an arterial road adjacent to a signal, such as this case.
Is it in our code?
It's in the code.
Or is it something we've just stipulated?
This requirement actually came out of the traffic report, so the stipulation concerning the median was not something P and Z came up with. This came.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And the next question that I have, and I'm going to address it to our traffic engineer. For 10 or 11 years, I have sat here and listened at how crappy the traffic is on Saraville and Portland, and how the speeders are this, that, and the other. Is there a plan for the city to improve Saraville? We talk about it. Have we done anything? Are we going to do anything to move the traffic? Are we waiting for the development to come in before we do it, or what?
Councilmember Campbell, regarding Saraville, there are currently 2 projects involved on Saraville Avenue between Yuma Road and I guess it would be Van Buren. What has been the area, I guess the restriction, so to speak, is on the west side of Saraville Avenue at 2 different locations. One location is, I can't remember, Christian, I'm going to have to ask you for the southern, it's the section, south of Curtis Commons. What was the name of that?
Harrison Street?
Yeah, Harrison Street was formerly Bennett Meadows, now being renamed or in the process of being renamed.
Bennett Meadows, Curtis Commons, and Harrison, yes.
Okay, and then, thank you. So one section is near Harrison. That section is being improved by the development currently called Bennett Meadows. And there is another segment just north of the Fry's Marketplace, or Fancy Fry's, as Christian calls it, which improves also the west side of Saraville Avenue from the Fry's Marketplace property to Curtis Commons. That was the last section, or the other section, where currently Saraville Avenue is 1-lane southbound. With these improvements, it will widen Saraville Avenue for the southbound direction from the current single-lane arrangement to 2-lane southbound, plus the bike lane, plus the sidewalk improvements, the typical, what we call half-street section, or the ultimate half-street section.
And when will this be done?
It's currently under being performed by developers. That has been obviously an issue.
That's been the issue all along.
Yes, it's been the timing with the developers. This is kind of falls into the CIP area as well, but that's been the balance of trying to, again, time, not knowing the timing necessarily of, or how the timing can change for private development versus a CIP project, which is more finite. Currently, those are under a CIP project. From what I know of Bennett Meadows, currently, I believe they're waiting on APS plans to be performed or completed, as the initial step is the relocating of utilities. So currently, we have the APS overhead that needs to be relocated. Once that is done, then the half-street improvements can be performed by the developer. I believe it's a similar circumstance at the other section just north of Fry's Marketplace. There's also the overhead power from APS that has to be relocated before any half-street improvements can be done. Timing-wise specifically, I would have to turn it over to CIP. We can definitely follow up with you, but I don't have that information with me right now.
And I'm assuming that the request to APS to move the lines has been done, and to move the utilities has been done. We're just waiting for that work to actually happen.
Correct. It's my understanding is those are both in design by APS. APS does their own design or by a third party, but that's all under the control of APS.
Okay. I, along with all of council, have complained about the colors of the apartments, and we don't want any gray apartments. We don't want it to look like a prison. We've been very, very vocal about it. If the developers do not understand what we're telling them, staff does now, because we have instructed staff. We can't tell them, you have to paint it blue and green and yellow. We have to say you use 2 colors or 3 colors, but we'd like a design element. We would like some artwork. We would like stonework, something to set our apartments apart. And yes, I am embarrassed by some of the apartments that have been built in my city. It breaks my heart to see that, because that's not what this council approved. But the developer gave us 3 shades of gray. gray, or gray, brown, gray. And it's just a shame. So I'm really confident that we're getting our message out now. We want quality products, quality building, and we want color in our city, not all desert. We've got enough desert colors. And based on that too, I'm excited to think that this is a townhouse offering. We have a lot of folks where I live that need to move out of where I live. They cannot take care of their homes anymore, but they have a lifestyle that this would be of interest to them. They want a high-end place to live that's safe, that has some of the amenities. And I think this is a wonderful infill because, quite frankly, I don't want another church up there or another school. I think we need to continue our quest to have interesting, affordable housing and have an interesting product so that we have all sorts to offer people that want to move to our city, because we welcome the residents, but we want to be able to provide a nice place for them to live. I also know that we are going to work hard to try and get Cerebral fixed. That's all I can say. It's been a mess since I moved here in '98. It doesn't look any different, other than we have had some few developments go in, and I hate the roads that you go down and then you're one, then you go two and then you're one, and then you end up in the dirt. It's just awful. So we are working on that, but I do not agree with the planning and zoning stipulation of the buying the right of way. We don't require that of developers generally, and I don't want to set a precedent doing it now because I think it's ill-advised. But then I'm very much in favor of a new traffic study to find out if there's some other way to get folks in and out of there. And if not, I want to make sure that we're making the right decision. I've seen a lot of write-ins, write-outs, and they seem to work fine, but it depends on the traffic study, if that's doable. So I hope you can do one quickly.
Councilman Kano.
This was such a compelling agenda item for planning and zoning that I watched it twice. A lot of good discussion, a lot of thoughtful consideration, certainly of the neighbors' concerns and the traffic. And I appreciate your explanation, Councilmember Bray, about why you put that stipulation in so that we would look at it. I immediately was concerned about the legality of it. I don't know that we can compel a private developer to buy someone else's private land. So that was definitely a concern. And then if that became the hinge point and that property wasn't attainable, then it would seem that nobody would be able to use the property. And I don't think that was the intent. Interesting discussion. I appreciate Mr. and Mrs. Robles coming out to planning and zoning and also coming here. Many of the concerns that they cite are concerns that we hear frequently about multifamily coming into housing, concerns about traffic and density, noise and privacy and things like that. I can tell you I have an older and a newer apartment that both feed into the street where I live, and the thing about people who live in multifamily or even in housing, they don't all come and go at the same time. So there isn't necessarily a set time when people are coming and going, unlike a school, unlike a church that definitely has more direct traffic periods. The people who live in apartments by my house, they're in the military. There's a Goodyear police officer that lives there. Did I lose? Oh, young people. And I know that it's important for us that we want to be sure that our young people, all people of all generations, have the opportunity to live here. I see that this is a attractive infill project. I think that considering the concerns about the intersection, it's probably lower density than if it was a school or a church or retail or anything like that. So I am in support of this project, but I do also support the additional traffic study. Thank you.
Well, there's not a whole lot to say after all that discussion, except, you know, I'm no traffic engineer. When I look at that and I think of a median in there, and I think, is that really helping traffic? And again, maybe the study will address that. And the only reason why I say that is it tends to make people who want to make left-hand turns make maybe illegal U-turns if we put no U-turn, or taking other ways of getting there. That's why, you know, I can understand where Stipp's coming from, Councilmember Stipp, as far as a traffic study to make sure, you know, how that would work. I also think the arbitrary thing we might want to look at as far as our code is concerned, a number that says you need 2 ways in and out. Now, I've been known to be on this council concerned about having more than one way to get in case of emergencies, as you all recall. But to have a number just saying under X when you're by 1, that allows it for Y. And I'm just saying that we may want to look at that and say there's other mitigating other than a count, just to be sure, you know, that if something's laid out in a way that really does need 2 entrances in or out. But I agree, you can't force somebody to buy something that's, to buy land. But that's the one concern I have with the ordinance when it deals with a count. You know, more black and white, unless I'm missing something in there that allows you to put 2 ways in or out with less. I know you want to say something, go ahead.
Yes, sir, just a point of clarification, if I may, thank you. The requirement for 2 ways in and out is 30 single-family homes in a detached single-family residential neighborhood and 100 units in a multifamily situation.
Right, my point is, it's a hard number, as
Yes, sir.
opposed to how the land is laid out. I'm just saying, suggestion that maybe we might want to take a look, that you have an or, and, or something either. In that case, that can be looked at as opposed to just a hard count. Because a hard count sometimes maybe doesn't work for that. But I agree, traffic has got to be checked, and we got to figure out a way, because I'm hearing it all the time on several as far as traffic. And for the police chief to see what we may want to do on some of the neighborhoods for traffic mitigation. I do believe we have an ordinance, if the neighborhood is requesting some of those mitigating things, they can be put in. Is that accurate? Does anybody recall that?
Yes, Mayor Pizzol, there is a neighborhood traffic management program, which we've had in place since, I believe, around 2012.
But yeah, we need to address those cutting through and make it, because you got kids out there on the street and something to slow that down. That's my worry about putting the actual median in there, is if you deter from going around as opposed to just making a left-hand turn out. Maybe the traffic study will come back and says that's not safe either. I don't know. Like I say, I'm no traffic engineer. But let the traffic study determine what that is. But again, I would think a median would be more of a deterrent, but again, I'm no traffic engineer.
Right, so.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
we have a motion and a second on the table. I would like to offer an amendment to that motion.
Madam, excuse me, sorry. That's going to be on your next item. Right now, you have the resolution declaring it as a public record. So what I'd recommend is when whoever makes the motion on the next item, strike stipulation 16 and substitute the traffic study.
I've got a couple, so.
Okay.
Okay, so theoretically, I should make the motion for the second item.
Okay, well, we've already made it for the first. We need to vote on
Correct.
that one, right?
Correct.
Okay.
First item's just for the zoning, right?
Mhm.
And the second's for the stipulations, correct?
No.
Does that make sense?
The motion on the floor right now is to approve the resolution. The language you want to modify is in the ordinance, which will be the next item. So right now, you're just making it a public record.
Okay. So we're just doing a vote now, right? Because we've had this
Yes.
discussion on that of where everybody is, correct?
Right.
Okay. All in favor of what's on the table right now?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, second thing is will the city clerk read the ordinance? And that's where you've got to do something, right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm on the same page here. Let's go.
Adopt ordinance number 2022-1524, conditionally rezoning approximately 6.23 acres of property located approximately 50 feet south of the southeast corner of Saraville Avenue and Portland Street from AU Urban to MF18 with pad overlay to be known as the Cleveland. Amending the zoning map of the city of Goodyear, providing for non-abridgment, providing for corrections, providing for severability, providing for an effective date, providing for penalties, and directing the city clerk to record a copy of this ordinance.
All right, now, can I have a motion, or you're going to have a motion and a second, but what do you got on your mind there, Councilmember Stipp?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2022-1524 as read with the following three changes to the stipulations. Number one, item 5. That currently, I'm going to go slow so you can go through this. That currently says access into the property and out of the property from North Saraville shall be limited to right in and right out. I would like to add, unless additional turning movements are approved by the City of Goodyear traffic engineer following a submission by the owner of an amended traffic impact statement or study, I don't know what the right language is, analyzing those movements.
And then removing the stipulation.
I'm not there
You're
yet.
not
That's
done
just
yet.
that one. So
Okay.
I'm going to look to Darcy. So basically what I'm saying is we're not going to, it's not going to be limited to right in and right out, but that we're going to let a traffic study funded by the owner determine if we can do left in and left out. That's a summary of that. Are you tracking so far?
I think she's got it.
Okay, that's number one. Number 2 is stipulation number 6, which talks about the owner shall at their cost construct a full median and full median landscaping for a section of North Saraville, blah, blah, blah. I'd like to add to that that may be modified and approved by the City of Goodyear and allowed a left in and left out if such movement is approved by the city traffic engineer. And allow for any waivers of traffic standards as needed.
I would probably add, if it's consistent with a amended traffic analysis, to make sure that it's
Okay, so,
policy.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, so Hugh just can't decide on his own? Okay.
Just want to backstop it with
No, no,
something.
that's-
I trust
that's-
Hugh, but
Again, I've only stayed at a Holiday Inn, so I didn't go to law school. And then the third item is to completely strike stipulation 16, which requires the purchase of right-of-way access. That is the motion, so now I need a second.
A second.
Did you get everything? I got it. Yeah, would you do that again?
Did you get the motions? Yes.
All right, open for council discussion.
Can you summarize those again, what those were? I just want to make sure I get the stipulations right.
You want me to do it?
Yeah.
Sure. Well, that way you get it twice on the recording, too.
Exactly.
So stipulation number 5 will read, access into the property and out of the property from North Saraville Avenue shall be limited to right in and right out unless additional turning movements, so basically left turns, are approved by the City of Goodyear traffic engineer following the submission by the owner of an amended traffic study analyzing whether left in and left out can work. That's number 1. Number 2 is stipulation number 6, which is the one that requires the median, that the requirement for the median may be modified and approved by the City of Goodyear to allow a left in or left out turning movement if such movements are approved by the traffic engineer as a result of a traffic study that was conducted in number 5.
Okay.
So the traffic study is going to dictate right in and right out, or left in and left out.
What about U-turns?
No, there's no stipulation that addresses U-turns, so I'm not going to say anything about it. And then the last one was completely striking number 6, the stipulation 16, which requires the purchasing of additional right-of-way.
Good. You got it? Okay. So, done with the discussion? Any further discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Do we need a break? Yeah.
Bill, we're gonna cut you off with that water. Goodness gracious.
Next public hearing item is to consider is a rezoning for Thrive at Avison. Is that correct? Goodyear?
Vision.
Close? All right, going to open the public hearing. Please introduce yourself and we'll go.
Thank you, Mayor Pizzillo. Alex Listinsky, Senior Planner. As you mentioned, this is the Thrive at a Vision rezone. I believe that's how you say it. Looking a little zoomed out on the property. The subject property is in the center here in the red box. To the west of it is Central Marketplace, which is anchored by the 99-cent store. In the parking lot, we have Church's Chicken and McFall Tire Repair. Just south is Van Buren. South of that Van Buren line is Avondale, which the Circle K for Avondale is on that corner. And then Bolero Avondale is just south of that. Northwest of the project, we have the Autoplex. And then to the east is a little commercial center called Central Square, which one of the shops in there is the Papa John's. Zooming in a little bit closer, there's about 4.6 acres subject to this requested rezone. That's located on east of the northeast corner of West Van Buren Street and North Central Avenue. Right on the corner is the existing Wells Fargo, so this property wraps around that. The existing zoning is a C2 general commercial, which I'll explain the request in my next slide, but to the north is the R17 district for our Arnold Manor. To the east and the south with Wells Fargo, and to the west is all existing C2 general commercial zoning. And then, like I said, south of Van Buren is Avondale property, which is zone C2 general commercial as well. The request tonight is to rezone that property from C2 general commercial to single-family residential using the R1A, which is the R1 attached district, with a planned area development overlay. The PAD overlay includes 4 modifications to the city's development standards. One is the lot area, which is in turn changes with the requested lot width reduction. So the R1A standards allows for a 35-foot wide lot and an 80-foot deep lot, which gives you the 2,800 lot area. So the request is to reduce the lot width, which in turn changes the lot area. So those two kind of go hand in hand. The requested lot width reduction goes from 38 feet to 28 feet, and that's to fit their proposed product. The requested rear yard deviation is existing 15 feet, and the proposal is for 11 feet for that to be the minimum. And then 17 feet of a wall separation, which Christian referenced in his presentation. The minimum today is 20 feet with a view fence. They're requesting a reduction to 17 feet, which I'll show you. There's some limitations that we've included in there, so just show you what that would look like. So the reduced rear yard setback would only apply to the north and east boundaries. The north, between the Arnold Manor property and this property, there's an existing 20-foot easement that cannot be built upon. So it does pinch the property a little bit as far as developable area. So we've allowed in the PAD for the north side and then along the east side, which is against the commercial to the east, to be reduced to 11 feet in those areas only. Otherwise, everything else would maintain the 15-foot requirement. The reduction to wall separation would only apply if a wall was built adjacent to the Wells Fargo commercial. So that is, given the narrowness of this part of the parcel, to maintain a trail within there, having that commercial wall up against the side yard rear walls or the building, the house walls, allow that to get reduced to 17 feet if there's a view fence provided. So you can see outside to the Wells Fargo and then the rear yard privacy walls along the east. Okay, so the R1A district does require design elements, as we've written we've written into the code. So for R1A, it's 1 amenity, 2 connectivity, and 1 streetscape element. For amenity, they are proposing a private pool. For connectivity, there's three elements that are applicable to the property. So 1 is no subdivision perimeter wall, so anyone can walk across the landscaping, which I'll show you on the map in a second, or walk along the trail, to the adjacent commercial properties. It's an infill development as per the general plan. And there is an internal trail system proposed that allows that pedestrian connectivity. For streetscape, they have committed to alternative paving along the driveways. So just a quick look at those amenities aside from the pavement. The community pool currently on this conceptual site plan is being provided. The internal trails are these red lines. You can see it goes along the boundary. So, and then as I referenced, that's no subdivision perimeter wall. Typically, if we'd see the subdivision enclosed, a resident might have to walk, around Van Buren to get to, let's say, the Papa John's to the east side. So it will not be enclosed. People can walk through there. These are conceptual elevations. The Planning Commission has provided some feedback, and the applicant is open to hearing any feedback you might have, but they are not to be approved with rezoning. For public comment, the neighborhood meeting was held at the Goodyear Municipal Complex on January 19th. Staff and the applicant were available, but no one from the public attended. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the item unanimously at the February Commission meeting. No one from the public objected to the presentation. That concludes my presentation. Obviously, we recommend approval with the stipulations included in the staff report and subject to the recommendation by the commission. I'm happy to answer any questions, and the applicant does have a presentation available if you'd like to hear it.
Applicant is here, right? Would you want to do a presentation, or would you want to wait to see if you got any questions? Your call.
Mayor and Council, I'm very respectful of your time tonight, and you guys have been laboring intently, so I'm happy to skip the presentation and just really wanted to highlight, I think, 3 key things, some of which I heard earlier tonight, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So just, and maybe we could just go, Alex, to any one of the sites. Yeah, perfect. So just really quickly wanted to note that the location is really important to this. It's in the TOD. And part of that is to allow for a higher density residential component to be part of developments or redevelopments. We felt it was really appropriate that the product type was appropriate to the single family residential to the north and the commercial to the south, the immediate south, the east and the west. So we really felt that this product of a townhome residential product where it wasn't going to be a high-rise multifamily. It's also not going to be a less expensive single-family for rent product. We felt it was appropriate, and we felt it was an appropriate land use buffer between that existing commercial and the single-family residential. The other kind of important piece is this is a tight site. There's, in addition to the 20-foot PUE easement on the north, where we're kind of requesting that deviation in the rear yard setbacks, there's also a minimum of a 60-foot APS setback all along the main frontage road. So the L shape of this site, it's been a C2 property since I think its original incorporation from the city in 1964 and has remained undeveloped. So we're excited to be able to bring forward what we think is a really appropriate land use for this area and for all the work the city's done on the TOD. And then just the last point is I hear you loud and clear on the color. It's a very good point. I think that the grays have a tendency to really fade over time. So that is the number one note that we took from Planning Commission as well. And we'll make sure to carry that forward and get some color and vibrancy in addition to kind of the natural stone wood cladding that's currently shown on there. So that's all I had. Welcome for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Yeah, we would appreciate that. Thank you. Let's see what we got there. Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? Will the clerk please read the resolution number 2022-2210 by title only?
You need to close the public hearing first.
All right. Public hearing closed. All right, will the city clerk please read resolution number 2022-2210 by title only?
Adopt resolution number 2022-2210, declaring as public records of certain documents filed with the city clerk entitled Official Supplementary Zoning Map 21-16, rezoned from C2 to R1A with a pad overlay, and legal description Thrive at a Vision Goodyear and Thrive at a Vision Goodyear pad overlay.
Can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Open for council discussion. Who wants to start it off? Go ahead, Councilmember Kano. Well, let's go with Campbell. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I have a quick question for you. Is the Wells Fargo Bank really in Goodyear at that location? I thought it was in Avondale.
It is annexed into the city of Goodyear.
Isn't that interesting? So that is Central Avenue that butts up and encompasses all of North Subdivision. So I'm assuming that Arnold Manor is part of North Subdivision. And in that subdivision, those homes have alleyways. Now, some of them have been blocked, but not all of them. So I want to be sure that when this property, if it is approved and it is built, that there is not necessarily an alleyway beside them unless that's how it has to be built, because the homeless congregate back there. I'm very familiar with this empty spot, and I'm just beside myself that someone wants to build on it. I think it's wonderful. It's a perfect infill, and I think it will boost the North Subdivision, but especially if it is a lovely building. I'm real excited about that. So on this property as well, it is, there's a lot of speeders ripping up and down Central. And we have ended up, some of a part of Central has some speed bumps, which is great. And I'm assuming that we won't have any issues with the in and out, right in, right out, left in, left out. I mean, we're not issuing that at this particular location, right?
Correct.
Okay, great. And my last question is, how many units are they going to build?
The proposal currently is 49 units.
49 units. And does every one of them have a garage?
That's correct.
Okay. And these are two-story
Correct.
units. So it would be a two-story, like a townhouse with my garage, and you go in and then I have a two-story. Everybody has a two-story. They're not two-story, then one-story, and then two-story. Okay, very good. I think that's a very wonderful project. I wish it well at that location. It's been empty forever. So thank you.
Councilmember Kano.
I think this is a great infill project. I'm fully supportive of it.
Vice Mayor Hampton.
No, I'm supportive of it as well. I just had a quick question on the fencing or the in and out of, to go to the different shopping centers there. I'm just curious, can I come from the shopping center? And I'm sure there's a fence there somewhere.
The proposal does not include a fence that surrounds the property. The fence would enclose the pool area. There's proposals in the backyard to have privacy walls, but not to prevent access from pedestrians coming through the subdivision.
So, okay, so pedestrians can just come right through into the subdivision then? How does the, yeah, so is it just a door that's preventing someone from coming into the house? Or is there like a little half wall? Or
I'm
is there?
sorry, they are still proposing a rear yard wall for your own unit, but to get, let's just say this little notch right here, they can walk through to the sidewalk here from the property to the east, but you still have a backyard that's enclosed.
Okay, okay. I'm just curious, I'm trying to think the area down there, just to make sure I understand, I appreciate the flow back and forth. I just want to make sure that it's safe for everybody who's there as well, so. Thank you.
Councilmember Stipp.
I have no comments. It's a great infill project, and I think to Councilmember Campbell's point, it's long overdue, so this is a good way forward.
Councilmember Bray?
P and Z Commission nailed this one. We should support it.
Yeah, the only thing I would suggest, this is just a piggyback on Councilmember Campbell. Different colors than the grays that's shown out there. And I'm sure staff will work on that to make sure we get a little vibrancy up there. All right. All right, with that, ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Will the clerk please read the ordinance number 2022-1525 by title only?
Adopt ordinance number 2022-1525, conditionally rezoning approximately 4.6 acres of land located east of the northeast corner of Central Avenue and Van Buren Street from general commercial C2 to R1A single-family attached residential with a pad overlay, amending the zoning map of the city of Goodyear, providing for non-abridgment, providing for corrections, providing for severability, providing for an effective date, providing for penalties, and directing the city clerk to record a copy of this ordinance.
Can I have a motion in a second?
So move.
Second.
Was it Wally?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. We good? All right. Open for council discussion? We okay? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, next public hearing item is to consider is the use permit for a convenience use Bikini Beans drive-through coffee shop. Open the public hearing. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Steve Correcchia, Interim Planning Manager. And tonight's item is a use permit for convenience use. The property is right here, Pebble Creek Parkway, McDowell Road. We have this commercial center here, Starbucks, Popeyes, Taco Bell, just a few of the convenience uses within this center. Surrounding it, we have pretty much commercial on three sides here, over to the north of the property, wrapping around to the developing Pebble Creek Marketplace. To the west, we have existing single-family residential within Palm Valley Phase 8. And I should also note on this slide, we will have full access turning movements into this commercial center here and here. And we also have several right-in, rights-out. So there is existing access to this commercial center. And this slide just shows the overall extent of Palm Valley Phase 8. Where we're proposing the use right now is right here within this mixed-use commercial parcel. And Palm Valley Phase 8, that was been around since 2005. The site plan itself for this commercial center since 2007. And so the request before the council tonight is a use permit for the convenience use. And with the property in the C2 zoning district, a restaurant is permitted, but if you add in a drive-through portion, that's the part that requires the use permit. And so this parcel it's a little over an acre. Most of the site improvements surrounding this property are done. The off-sites are done. Pretty much most of the center's improvements are done. What's left is the vacant pad proposed for this convenience use. And on that pad is proposed an 830 square foot building. You'll have a almost equal area for outdoor patio. No indoor dining is allowed, or being offered, I should say. And this is the proposed configuration for the use. And this is Pebble Creek Parkway here. This is one of those right-in, right-outs that the patrons could utilize. And this pad sits in between the Taco Bell and the Walgreens. And how it's currently designed, drive-through customers will enter here a double entry, converge, wrap around the building, and here is where the pickup, or actually the order and pickup will occur here. What's different is there's no menu boards or any first stops along this drive. So you will drive all the way around, come to the window, order your beverage, pick it up, and then exit the site here. There's also several parking spaces on the site for if you do want to stay and sit here at the outdoor patio. So they'll have a drive-through window and a pedestrian pickup window here. And this is the elevations for the building. It is a small building, but the applicant was able to utilize the materials and colors that have been approved for the center. And with any use permit, these are the two criteria that we look at. And staff, in looking at this, we did find that this is a commercial center intended for uses such as this. Traffic and queuing, those will be internalized to the parcel. Traffic study and what we looked at, there was plenty of queuing that exceeded city requirements. So there were no proposed or anticipated impacts to fire lanes or city streets. And also with residential, the nearest residential is about 600 feet away. So staff did not see any impacts to any existing single-family residential areas. So we found the parcel size sufficient for this use. Again, the queuing will occur all on site in excess of city requirements. Hours of operation, early mornings to later at night, 7 days a week, but with similar uses within the center and residential, at least 600 feet away, we did not see any restrictions on hours. All off-sites are complete. A few on-sites around this pad are needed, but generally most of the improvements for the center are complete. And other concerns, none at this time. Again, we're just looking at the use permit for the drive-through portion only. We sent out notices for required citizen review and for this public hearing as required by city and state law. To date, staff has not received any public inquiries on this request. Did go to Planning and Zoning Commission where recommendation of approval was sent to the council on a 5-1 vote. And looking at this use permit, we do find that it meets our evaluation criteria. Staff and the commission, we are recommending approval subject to the 10 stipulations in the staff report. Mayor, that concludes my presentation. Staff's available for questions. The applicant is also here. They do not have a formal presentation, but available for any questions.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to speak?
I'm just here for questions and answers.
Okay. Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the request for the use permit of a convenience use Bikini Beans drive-through coffee shop on 1.1 acres parcel in Cobblestone Creek Commercial Center located at the northwest corner of Pebble Creek Parkway and McDowell Road within the Palm Valley Phase 8 pad, subject to stipulations?
So
Open.
moved.
Second.
Open for council discussion. Go ahead. You? No?
Sure, I'll go. Got it. All right. So I just want to make sure with I was reading through the stipulations and everything. I think those are fine. I know you said you did a traffic study on this, right, with queuing, and it was satisfactory?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's the only thing. Most coffee shops, I feel like in Goodyear, I don't know if the traffic study is adequate, but they're very successful in Goodyear. So I just want to make sure the queuing is going to be good for this as well. And then I just want to clarify, so the only reason this is in front of us is because it's a drive-through use, correct?
Mayor, council members, yes. Restaurant is a permitted use in commercial zones, but you add the drive-through component that trips the use permit.
Okay, so it would have gone through if it wasn't a drive-through or if we weren't looking at drive-throughs, I guess, in the future. So, because we're talking about getting rid of that coming to us at some point. So.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I really don't have tons of questions. I'm sure, like most coffee shops, it'll be very successful. So, all right, thank you.
Councilmember Campbell?
Gosh. Well, I'm really not in favor of two drive-in coffee shops in the same shopping center. We've got Starbucks all the way to the north. We've got Popeyes. That traffic mess is a mess. Then you come down and you've got, I think it's Firestone Tire Company, and then you've got Taco Bell, and when that backs up, that's a mess. And now we want to put a coffee shop on the other side, and it's got to interfere with the traffic coming into AAA if they get all backed up too. So I'm not sure this is a good use of that property, personally. That's my concern.
Councilmember Kano?
I've looked at the company website, and now I understand the reason for the name. Like other businesses, they have a particular dress code that people may or may not agree with, but I think it's fine. I think there seems to be a huge capacity for coffee. So I'm sure they'll do well.
Councilmember Loretano?
My only concern is the same thing with the queuing, because I think, as Councilmember Campbell said, that area is kind of a mess with the Starbucks backs actually into the, at the height of the time, to the Popeye. So it is kind of, that whole area is kind of a mess just getting through to those areas. I'm hoping that this one having the 2 queues helps that. How many cars will fit in those 2 queues?
Mayor and council, standard requirement is 5 from the first stop, so you would probably have 5 cars back from a typical menu board. With this length here, and then you're starting a double, in looking at it, I probably could fit about 15 cars, where normal stack we would require at least 5. So they are in providing queuing in excess of city requirements.
Okay, yeah, because I think the double lane will probably help some of those problems. I do have one other question. Maybe this is better for the applicant. When you're not using a menu board to place your order so that people can start making the coffee ahead of time, does that lead to more queuing, or does that slow it down?
So Josh with Arc One Associates, Joshua Ayler. And the answer to that is there is some slowing down to that, like Dutch Bros does, that they have that, but that's why we have extra queuing, and we knew going into this that 5 cars wouldn't be enough, and we feel that it might even be more than 15 cars depending on how it truly queues, but the code would say you have at least 20 feet per car, but if you start stacking them, you can actually get even more into
Okay.
the traditional route.
So will you have, like Dutch Bros has, like the person who takes the orders ahead of time with their iPad type of deal? Is that kind of how your model is?
Right. They would go out and use your iPad, but
Gotcha. No, I just wanted to make sure that it looks like the double queuing will help, so that's my concern, so thank you.
yes, thank you.
Councilmember Stipp?
Steve, you're running the controls, right? The pictures? Can you go back to that site? I hate to continue to point out the obvious, and Wally and I always seem to be on the same page. However, this spot right here is another pad, is it not? Right there.
Yep.
And is the spot right there another pad? Look what we did to ourselves.
That's right.
We jammed as many little drive-throughs, et cetera, that we could in a very small parcel. So I think we should not be penalizing the current applicant for our, and I don't mean to look at you, Steve, I apologize for that. That's probably creepy. But we did this to ourselves. So, it fits within the parameters. It meets all the guidelines. This is, it's a good project going through. And despite my best efforts to become an adult, I still cannot drink coffee. So I don't understand the appeal, but it's a good project for that spot. So I have no objection.
Councilmember Bray? Well, there's nothing more to add through there. The only reason why it's in front of us is because it's a drive-through. And that's it. So with that, let's see what I've got here. Got on the road, over to council. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
1 nay. Okay.
And you're right, Bill, we did do it to ourselves, but we've got to stop it somewhere.
All right, last public hearing item to consider is a rezoning from C2 General Commercial to C2 General Commercial with a PAD, Planned Area Development Overlay, for a mixed-use development to be known as Virtua Citrus. Open public hearing, please introduce. Stephen is back.
Mayor, council members, Steve Correccia, interim planning manager. This public hearing is for rezoning of property. Where we're located here is McDowell Road and Citrus, that's southwest corner, about 6.5 acres right here. Immediately to the west is existing residential in Canada Village. We have the correctional facility wrapping up around here to the north, vacant commercial to the east. Then we have I-10 to the south. And right now, the property has a neighborhoods land use within the general plan. The zoning is C2, general commercial, and that was done in 1998. And to date, the property is undeveloped. What the applicant would like to do is basically retain the C2 zoning on that 6.5 acres, but add a PAD overlay. And what they would like to do with that PAD overlay would be to include several less intensive light industrial uses. And here is the list here. And the city does not have kind of like a flex industrial type zoning district. So how the applicant made their request is to keep the C2, but add that PAD overlay. And again, it is to add these industrial uses here. The applicant did, with the adjacency of Canada Village, look to broaden their uses allowed on the property, but knowing that residential was to the west, looking at uses that could be compatible with that existing residential. So you notice most of these are uses that are required to be conducted inside a completely enclosed building. Anything outside is storage would be only secondary to a primary use that occurs inside. And the prohibited uses, most of these are in one way or another already prohibited, but just for clarity, the applicant did want to include those to lessen any confusion in the future. They also are proposing to reduce the building height. 56 feet is currently allowed. They agreed to go down to 40 feet. They felt that was more than adequate for any use that they would propose on the property. This image before you, purely conceptual. The applicant does not necessarily have any plans at this time, but they did want to show what potentially could occur on the property. A business park type use, several different suites. Someone could come in, have a small contractor shop, some space in here to load and unload. Again, showing the screening that they would be required to do. A major element of the buffer would be a row of trees and a hedge within a 26-foot landscape buffer along Canada Village here. These are the 10 criteria that staff looks at with any rezoning request. And we look at this during the review of the application and materials submitted by the applicant to us. And the staff report goes into much greater detail, so I'll just touch on a few of these. So in looking at this request, we do find it consistent with the general plan. The property's features, there's no natural features that would preclude development as proposed by the applicant. We find it will be compatible with the surrounding area, including Canada Village to the west, with the buffers, reduced height, and limited uses proposed with the PAD overlay. To date, there's been no public opposition to this project. We did have an in-person citizen review meeting on August 31st of last year. No major issues with residents of Canada Village who attended the meeting. Actually, their main concern was more with what was proposed with McDowell Road and with any potential relocation of power poles. Because it's a public hearing, we also did advertise as required by city and state law. To date, again, no public opposition to this request. So we do find it meets our review criteria. Staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission were both recommending approval subject to the 17 stipulations in the draft ordinance. Mayor, that concludes my part of the presentation. The applicant's here if you have any questions.
Applicants here?
Yes, sir.
Would you like to speak?
Mayor Pizzello and council, here to answer questions. I want to extend my appreciation to Steve and Alex for their patience in working with me to use your website. My staff will tell you I'm technically challenged, so I appreciated their kind assistance. We worked out all the concerns with staff, and we appreciate, again, their assistance and ready to move forward.
Thank you. Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Anybody in the audience like to speak? Close public hearing. Will the city clerk please read the resolution number 2022-2208 by title only?
Adopt resolution number 2022-2208, declaring as public records of certain documents filed with the city clerk entitled Official Supplementary Zoning Map Number 20-06, and legal description Virtuous Citrus Pad South, or SWC Citrus and McDowell, and Virtuous Citrus Pad Overlay, February 2022.
Can I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 2022-2208? All right, open for council discussion. Who wants to start? Go ahead. Vice Mayor, you start, kick it off.
Yeah, so I think it's a good project. I had a question though, just relative to another project in Goodyear. Is it the same C2 as near like Bullard and Van Buren? Those industrial buildings south of the hot sauce place? Or is it a higher or lower density, lower use, I guess?
Mayor, council members, the C2 zoning district, it is a hard zone. So that would be equivalent to, probably more of equivalent to any grocery center, shopping center.
Oh, this would be?
The C2 is more of a retail and services type of use. So the grocery store anchored center kind of gives you a good flavor of what a C2 center looks like and the uses allowed. The Bullard Commerce Center, I believe that could be a specific planned area development where they do try to mix certain uses in there. Because again, we don't have a flex zone, so
Yeah.
we have to go the route of the PAD.
Okay, in my mind, I feel like this is going to be like that one, which I think is great because I think we need more. I think we desperately need more places for small business to be able to start up and launch from those type of places because we don't really have much space in Goodyear to accommodate those type of small business uses. So I'm in favor of this location here. This is probably a silly question, but could it ever be, you couldn't put like a restaurant in there, or could you? That kind of use?
Mayor, council members, you could with this kind of blend of the C2 with some of the light industrials like you were mentioning. So you could have a restaurant in one of the suites and a contractor's type facility a couple down.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I don't know why, but who knows? And Goodyear loves coffee, so maybe it could be another little coffee shop in there next to something else. So okay, I was just curious to use, but like I said, I think we definitely need more uses like this in the city for our small businesses to be able to grow and develop and to move forward. And we just don't have that much here in Goodyear. So I appreciate the project, and I think it'll be a good use there. Thank you.
Councilmember Campbell?
I was just looking at the stipulations. So Steve, if this is approved, the owner is going to construct the half street. So we're not going to have any issue with them doing their part of the development, correct? And they're also going to put in a traffic light or pay for part of the traffic light if a traffic light is warranted there. Have we done a traffic study that is telling us we need one there now?
Mayor, council members, not at this stage. We'll do a formal site plan. We'll do a formal site plan when they come in to develop, and that will have a traffic study.
They'll do a traffic study then. Okay. And let me see here. And you didn't get any response out of Canada Village at all? Is there a sign, was there a sign that the property was going to be developed and it was going to be at planning and zoning on such and such a day, and we didn't have any response at all from them?
Mayor, council members, we did get a couple residents attend a neighborhood meeting. I did field several calls from residents of Canada Village.
And what was their calls concerning? What did they say?
100% of the opinion was they had no concerns with this project. Their main concerns revolved around McDowell Road and ultimate improvements to those roads. How would that affect their homes? Their homes are close to the road, so
Right,
they
they are.
had a concern about, are you going to take our homes? And just clarified that, no, this is
Right.
rezoning of this 6 acres only. We're not impacting Canada Village.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Kano,
It's a good project. I support it.
Councilmember Moritano,
I have nothing to add. I'm in support.
Councilmember Stipp,
Nothing to add.
Councilmember Bray. All right, with that, council ends the discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Will the city clerk please read ordinance number 2022-1523 by title only?
Adopt ordinance number 2022-1523, conditionally rezoning approximately 6.5 acres of property located at the southwest corner of McDowell Road and Citrus Road from the C2 General Commercial Zoning District to the C2 General Commercial Zoning District with a PAD, Planned Area Development Overlay, amending the zoning map of the city of Goodyear, providing for non-abridgment, providing for corrections, providing for severability, providing for an effective date, and directing the city clerk to record a copy of this ordinance.
Can I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 2022-1523?
Second.
Open for council discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, now into the business section. I would like to remind council to wait for a motion and a second for discussion. First item on business is a comprehensive sign package for Vantage Data Centers. Please introduce yourself.
Mayor, council members, Steve Correcchia, interim planning manager. Have a sign package before you tonight for Advantage Data Centers. And we're about 50 acres here, just west of us here at GMC. And so surrounding us, we know we have a lot of the warehouse distribution, data center uses developing along the Bullard corridor here. We also have some multifamily proposed here to the west, future development, non-residential to the north, mix of commercial and other types of industrial, light industrial uses potentially up in here. So currently the property is zoned general commercial I2 back in 2018. A site plan for the Vantage Data Centers approved in 2020 with that first phase currently under construction. And with the action tonight is a comprehensive sign package. So that is intended to provide a coordinated signage for the property. As part of that, modifications may be requested, such as larger signs, more signs, or a sign type not permitted currently by our code. However, if so requested, then that must come before Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council. And this request for the data center, would be a new sign package for the property. And it would apply to all phases of the data center campus and include the full type of signage that you would consider for a large campus between wall signs, canopy signs, directional signs, and ground signs along the street. And there are a few deviations requested with this sign package. And here with this chart here, We see that those come with the canopy sign, which is a new sign type, not currently permitted, so needed to be requested with this comprehensive sign package. Directional signs, the monument signs, and the internal monuments, those require deviations just because they were a little larger than currently allowed by our sign code. So this is the full data center campus at build-out. So this is Bullard and Van Buren right here. We've got the first phase coming under construction here. But as you can see with this exhibit, we'll have 3 large buildings with multiple users for each building. An applicant's intent was to provide signage along the street, but also ID signage on the individual buildings and also at the entrances, so customers and operational staff would know which unit that they would need to go to. And this just shows some of the signage that is proposed, the designs that the applicant did choose, kind of matches the architecture, the colors, materials already approved for the data center buildings. And so this is the signage that would be out along Bullard. This would be some of the signage in front of the project entries, again, to help with wayfinding for customers and staff visiting the site. 3 criteria that we look at with any kind of comprehensive sign package. We have an enhanced design. What are the adjacent land uses? Will it be compatible? Visibility, legibility. And in looking at this, we found that the data center is located in industrial and tech quarter. There'll be similar land uses to this data center surrounding it. It is a large data center campus with multiple buildings. So the need for wayfinding and larger signage did seem appropriate. We have no residential nearby that would be adversely affected. And again, just want to point out that they did match the design of the signage so that it would complement the buildings. And so we find the request does meet our evaluation criteria. We find that the modifications are acceptable. With that, staff and the Planning Commission, we are recommending approval subject to the one stipulation. Mayor, that concludes my presentation. Staff's available for questions. The applicant is also here if the council has any questions.
Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? No, hear none. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the Vantage Data Center Comprehensive Sign Program dated January 18th, 2022, subject to stipulations? Open for council. So moved? Second. All right. Open for council discussion. Anybody?
I got a question. What's the stipulation, Steve? I've looked through the presentation and I can't find it.
Mayor and council, it's the standard stipulations that just states that all future signage will be in conformance with this sign package approved
That's
tonight.
what I thought. Now, is the request to put their name on the building about the same size as Atlantic?
Mayor, council, would you please repeat that question?
Is the name on the building the same size as Adelante has on their building that you can see from the freeway?
Mayor, Councilperson Campbell, let us do the research on that. We don't have that information readily available.
Okay.
As you pointed out, the hospital and Adelante have larger signs because of the visibility from the interstate. This project is not on, obviously doesn't have visibility from the interstate, but we have the documentation. We'll be able to pull that package and we'll put it in the manager memo or get the information to council.
But it could be seen from I-10.
This project could not be seen
You don't
from
think
us.
so? The way it's facing?
It's facing east-west.
Okay. right.
Just, it's immediately adjacent to City Hall here, so it's a long
East-west,
way.
okay.
It's a long way.
If you could
from
let me
I-10.
know the difference between them, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am, we'll follow up with you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? You all good? With that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. We're at the final item on the business is the compensation for mayor, vice mayor, and council members. Please introduce yourself as you come to the podium here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As staff liaison for the Council Compensation Committee, I am here more than anything else just to drive the presentation and answer any questions you may have. I'd like to introduce two of our committee members, Susan Smeltzer, the committee chair, and Carl Hamilton, the vice chair. Turn it over to you, Susan.
No, you push the button.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pizzillo, Vice Mayor Hampton, and council members. On behalf of myself, Vice Chairman Hamilton, and the other members of the committee, I thank you for allowing us to present tonight. As a result of the recommendations made by the city's ad hoc committee for council compensation back in 2019, the city charter was revised last year to establish a council compensation committee. It is the responsibility of this committee to review the compensation of elected officials of the city every 2 years and to recommend changes if deemed appropriate. The committee met in November to discuss the current compensation of elected city officials as well as review survey data compiled for benchmark cities in Arizona. In particular, we looked at the compensation of mayor, vice mayor, and council members, as well as the population in each of the benchmark cities. These cities are the same ones used by Goodyear for other comparable data. Despite having proposed an increase to compensation in 2019, which was adopted, the current salaries of the Goodyear City Council are still well below the market average. Specifically, the mayor's compensation is 60.7% of market average, the vice mayor is 57.3% of the market average, and council members are only 44.4% of the market average. We also looked at the economic growth the city of Goodyear has realized since 2019, and it has been remarkable. The time and effort expended by the mayor, vice mayor, and council members for this to happen, and the time and effort required of them for this economic growth to continue should be recognized. It is therefore our recommendation that the mayor, vice mayor, and council members each receive an increase of 5% to their existing salaries effective July 1, 2022. I apologize, I made a typo on the page. While this increase still does not allow them to be on par with the benchmark cities compared to, it does show a good faith effort to recognize the work they are doing on behalf of the residents of the city. Therefore, we put forth our recommendation for your approval and adoption of the ordinance that would enact the changes. If you have any questions, we would be more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? Will the city clerk please read the resolution 2022-2214 by title only?
Adopt resolution number 2022-2214, accepting the Council Compensation Committee's recommendation and approve an annual compensation increase of 5% for the mayor, vice mayor, and each of the council members and provide for an effective date.
Can I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 2022-2214?
So moved.
Second.
Open for council discussion? Yes.
I want to thank you and the committee for your hard work. And sometimes these issues are really touchy, so thank you very much for your guys' hard work.
Thank you, our pleasure.
Councilmember Stipp.
Well, first I'd like to echo that, thanks. I have historically always voted against this and was prepared to do so until I actually read the staff report and saw how incredibly low the wages were. None of us took this job because of the money, but for, not just for myself, but for all of the future council members going forward, the only way to catch up is this maximum increase, so I'll support it.
Councilmember Bray? No comment? Kano? Campbell? Nope. Yeah, I want to thank you for putting the time in again, always, our citizens as a whole, whenever we need something, they all stop up. That's what I think is so great about this community. Again, I want to thank you, bottom of my heart. With that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let's see, does council have any comments, commendations, or reports on current events? No. Does the city manager have anything to report?
I actually have two items, and it's the second item I moved over here for. But first, I just wanted to share that in partnership with the American Diabetes Association, our inaugural Tour de Cure bike ride will start and finish at the Goodyear Ballpark this Sunday, March 6th. Riders will depart from the ballpark, take a lap on the Phoenix Raceway NASCAR track, and soak in the majestic views of the Estrella and White Tank Mountains. And as of this morning, registration is nearing 500 riders. Anyone interested in riding can still register at diabetes.org, Arizona 56. And of course, there's 3 route options, 56 miles, 23, and 5.6. Just to also highlight that the festival area at the Goodyear Ballpark will be open throughout the ride and includes entertainment, food and sponsor vendors, along with fun activities for the kids. This event raises critical funds to support the mission of the American Diabetes Association, and it's a great way to show off the assets here in our community. The second item I needed to bring up is that we recently did a work session with council on budget, and during that conversation, usually our next steps is to bring back the financial policies for council adoption, which is what we use to build the city manager's budget. During that council conversation, there was some points brought up by council member Stipp, and I know, Sherry, I could visibly see that you were in agreement, but I left that meeting unclear of my direction as to whether or not I should be putting together this next year's budget by setting aside some dollars and able to return them to the community to have them dedicated for a certain purpose. So I don't know if you recall that conversation. But I think that at the time, I was not reflective enough to kind of stop and pause and ask council very specifically whether or not my direction is to head as Councilmember Stipp had proposed, or whether or not I should not. So I'd like to just revisit that. If there is interest, as a reminder, mayor can ask me to bring back a work session or 3 members of council. So if Bill still would like to, Councilmember Stipp would still like to propose that we further vet that concept, my proposal would be that I come back in work session with council to work through that, because those revenue pieces are important as we work to put together the remainder of the budget. Clear as mud. Does that make sense?
Any thoughts? Councilmember Kano?
I'm trying to recall, I thought that it was in lieu of additional revenue taxes or transit, things like that, what we could do to pay it forward towards the community. But that's a very generalized, and so I think the idea of delving into what we meant by that would probably be helpful.
Campbell?
I have no comment.
I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, so.
Laura said it very well.
Maybe, so if that's exactly what it was, doing something to get back, but I can't remember what the mechanism was, if it was.
Well, I could interject. I only need 3 council members to ask me to bring that back for a work session, so I know that, okay. Very good. Thank you for allowing me to clarify that, and I look forward to getting that scheduled.
Yeah, I would just like to add, we do that through a budget process, whether we do a capital improvement plan or whatever. We are giving back. It's just a matter of whether you want to set money aside for something specific. But I would argue that we do that through the budget process, but I may be the outlier on that, so, okay? All right.
That's it.
With that, no further business to discuss. This meeting, we got another meeting March 7th, 6 p.m. Regular meeting, no further business, meeting's adjourned.